Welcome, everyone, to the under 16 portion of the 2025 ChessKid Youth Championship. Very excited to bring these young prodigies to you. And I have none other than Grandmasters Artur's next sons with me here. I haven't worked with him in a while, but I'm looking forward to his insight knowledge on these players and the game. Artur's welcome.
Yeah, Mike, absolutely. It's such a pleasure, honor to be here today. Essentially, we are going to be following some of the best young players today. So I won't be surprised that some of them in the future, they're going to become super GMs. So at least one of them already is over 2,600. Actually, no, I think two of them are over 2,600. Very, very strong players already despite a young age. So it's going to be a fun event.
That's right, a 2,600, the world's youngest GM. We've got the ChessKid puzzle solving champion. But before we get to all of the players, who some of you are already known to our audience, let's take a look at the format, because you need to know exactly what we're going to be looking at today. We're going to be here for most of the day. And there we go. We've got 12 players. Now, we split them up into 6 different groups. The ratings are balanced in each group. We also did it by time zone. You know, our kids in California don't want to wake up at 6 a.m. to play chess. They're not that into the game. Actually, maybe they would. But it's going to be a double round robin. So Artur's and I are going to see 6 kids here morning for me, afternoon for Artur's, and then 6 more later on today. Double round robin, so a perfect score would be 10. And the goal today is to get into the 2. That advances you to tomorrow's knockout portion. And there you can see in the tomorrow's knockout and the single elimination, we'll play best of 4 games in the semis and then best of 6 games in the finals. That is the plan. And Artur's and I are going to be with you for all of it.
Yeah, so we're going to start with the first group, 6 players, 10 games, a lot of action. So the time control is the Bliss time control. And here we can see this is the lineup of the Group A and Group B. So we're going to start, obviously, with the Group A. And the top-seeded players, as you can see, is Yagiz, the reigning champion. He's coming back after his stellar performance last year, the Wonder Kid from Turkey. Actually, that's the guy, Mike. I won't be really surprised to break the 22nd elo in the coming years, but he's going to have a very tough competition because we have such household names as Shreyas Royal, Marco Materia, Zahid Suyarov. Also, we have Yutiampo Alu Miaoyi. So who's going to take it down? We're going to see.
Yeah, very exciting. As you can see, we put most of the Europeans and Asians in this group and most of the kids from America in this afternoon's group. And some great players. We've got Malaysia's number 2, trying to become Malaysia's first ever Grandmaster to best of my champion, Lu Miaoyi. So yeah, some pretty cool names. And Shreyas Roy, been a ChessKid ambassador for many years, so pretty known to our audience. And then, of course, looking ahead, you guys know Fausti. You guys know Andy Woodward, our Chess.com puzzle-solving champion. Tani's famous. Alice Lee is a big hero. Ryo, former chess champion, speed chess champion. So, yeah, we've got some household names and some ones that you're going definitely to need to know. So, I am super excited to see what happens. And Artur's, we've got some cash online. Why don't you let us know what the kids are playing?
Right, so the total prize for this, you can see, is $10,000 US. The winner's going to walk away with $3,000. I would actually say that's a very, very nice prize for a simple 2-day job. All you have to do is to beat some of the best young players in your age category. Second and third place also is going to walk away with a very, very nice prize money. But everyone, I mean literally everyone, will be going away with some cash.
That's right. In fact, we have one player playing from an airport lounge today. We will reveal who that is a little bit later on. And that player, you can go ahead and upgrade to premium economy because you're going to get some cash in your pocket no matter how well you do today. So it's kind of nice, you know, kids get to be on the worldwide stage, but they get to, you know, not have any of those travel costs. Although, as I said, one player is playing from the airport lounge. So if it costs you $50 to get in the lounge today, just know you're getting at least $200 on the return end and maybe some stale croissant as well, whatever your airport lounge offers.
Right, so we're going to see how it's going to go. So I believe the games are about to start. Mike, do you have any preferences? Obviously, Yagiz is a big elo favorite and the reigning champion. Maybe we're going to start with that game. Also, I'm very curious how Louis is going to do from the airport. Actually, this is becoming quite a tradition lately, especially when you're following some online tournaments. I've definitely seen, I believe it was Daniel Naroditsky was playing Tata User from a plane, and Andrew Tang was playing in the tournament from a train. So being on a way doesn't really stop you from playing in a competitive tournament.
That's right. Now, Louis Miaoyi, she is the one playing from the lounge, so the secret is revealed. She gets at least to be terrestrial, as you said, Archers. Playing from a plane, we've seen horror stories before. The plane hits turns or goes out of Wi-Fi range, and well, there goes your title Tuesday. So Lu Miaoyi, please stay on the ground. Make sure your flight does not leave early because we want you to have the full 10 rounds today. But yeah, it just goes to show you that players will adjust their schedule to be part of our events. Let's take a look at the round one pairings and see who Lu Miaoyi is waiting to play. Well, she unfortunately gets black against Yej. Yej scored 8 out of 10 in last year's under 16 event. Keep in mind, last year, he was only like 12 years old. I think he was the youngest player playing besides Fausti. And Yej went on to get the top score in Saturday's round robin, and then he went on to win in Sunday's knockout. So yeah, that rating that you see, by the way, not his FIDE Classical. That's probably his FIDE Blitz. As we all know, Yej is above 2,600. And yeah, there's our next player waiting to be playing. I think that must be Marco. That looks like Marco to me. I've memorized all the players. No, sorry, that's Yej. Yej gets the Harry Potter lookalike award.
That's Yej, yeah.
Yeah, if we put Marco's picture up, you see Yej has aged since last year, but Marco wears similar glasses. So anyway, they're both Harry Potter lookalikes. Yeah, there we go. See, I wasn't completely off base on that one. I just want to say, okay, that's Marco.
Right. That's Marco. So we can assume they're playing from their homes, and yeah. So actually, I'm very, very amazed about Yej, and I suppose we're going to talk about him. Despite his young age, he looks so mature, so professional. I mean, I had a chance to see him in action in the 2024 World Chess Olympiad in Budapest. I was playing for Team Latvia. He is playing for Team Turkey. We did not meet. I was playing top board against Aziz Gorel, and he was playing on the second board. But already back then, I mean, his presence, like how calm and collected he was sitting on the board and not nervous a bit. So I was, yeah, very, very impressed.
Yeah, I also got to meet Yej at that same Olympiad. Of course, I was just there as a journalist, so I had a little more time on my hands. I wasn't playing for country arters. And I just went up to say hi, and he was very appreciative. So, of course, I do know who he is, and a very nice young man. I've heard, actually, he's been working on his English, too. So we will see. Now, we're interview some players today, perhaps. Definitely we'll interview the winner tomorrow. But that's pretty cool that the players are realizing that they need to become Dusty. I think his English has improved a lot. So is Yej. So these are school kids. We actually have a list of all of their favorite school subjects, Archers. It will surprise no one that most kids said math, although a few said art, and one said, and I'm not sure what they call it in Europe, one said PE, physical education, basically gym.
I think also history. History was quite a popular choice.
Yeah, that's true. In fact, let's make it their first trivia question to chat. So, chat, which player said that their favorite school subject, or at least one of them, was physical education? You can also guess history. But there was a couple kids that said history. So let's go with physical education first. We'll save history for later. So I'm checking the Twitch chat, and you do get your name announced on the air. If you can tell us whose favorite subject is physical education, who's doing sit-ups basically in school. And I'm actually getting the answer here. I was like 98% sure, but when you end, I've been to enough bar trivias that if you're the trivia giver and you don't have the answer right, it looks really bad. Okay, so I am checking chat, and I'm going to see who gets the answer right first. By the way, I haven't done any actual math on this one, so this is just me spitballing, Archers. But if you take the 6 kids from today, they would probably be a top 25 Olympiad team. Something like that. If they were like their own national country.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You know, Mike, I'm not really surprised that math is such a popular choice for most of the kids. Like, I also, when I was going to the school, math was one of my popular choices. But I don't really think that if you are a young player, promising player, you have to be really good at math. Usually it is, but not always. Yeah, and actually, I still remember this quote from my math teacher who said, "Since you're so good at chess, you should be so good at math." Yeah, and I was like pretty angry at her. I said, "No, this is not how it works. These are completely, totally unrelated things." But I was a bit surprised about history as one of the popular choices between the kids, because I'm probably speaking from my own experience. I was not a big fan of history back in school. How about you, Mike?
I've grown to like history later, yeah, but when they started talking about the Visigoths and the Ostrogoths, they were so far removed from me. Now, things that took place in the 20th century intrigue me a lot. I get really into that. I was in the Solomon Islands once and visited an outdoor museum of like World War II planes that are just sitting there gathering rust. And it fascinated me. But getting back to our subject, I have yet to see anybody who actually has gotten the answer right. Now, what interestingly about the subject of math, Tani said math used to be his favorite subject, but it depends a lot on the teacher. So that's kind of interesting that, they're at the age now where the teacher has to get into it for the kid to get into it. But I haven't seen anybody get the answer right for PE, physical education. Some people guessed Shreyas, I guess because of the English football connection, but that's not quite right. So I did just drop a subtle hint, though, when I said football. Which of these players might be really into football? I mean, they might all be, but like, who is
I
almost
probably could answer it
required?
immediately.
Yes, who is required by country of national origin to be into football? Otherwise, I'm talking about the entire field of 12 here. We're not just segmenting it. So you've got all the 12 on your screen there. Which of those 12? Now, come on, chat. I know there's like a 7-second delay on Twitch, but if that hit wasn't good enough, then you need some more coffee, chat. I'm not trying to throw you under the bus before the action starts, but you can think about it and get back to us. This is just waiting to be answered.
Can I give a more hints?
Sure.
That this person is a big fan of Lionel Messi.
Okay, chat.
Like
That's a you, as Danny would say, that's a you problem, not me, if you can't get it right at this point. We have some people saying, of course. Yeah. Okay. So finally, somebody actually typed it in. Chess, M-A-X-E. I don't know how you pronounce that. Chess Maxi. Got it right first. It is Fausti. Fausti's favorite subject is physical education. Now, Fausti, I don't want you to get too good at football that you'll leave the chess world. I don't think you will. So anyway, you got it right. We're waiting any moment for the games to start. They will be starting very soon. We actually have one more fun graphic to show you. We also asked all of the players who is their favorite player of all time. And we have some really funny answers. Let's go ahead and put those up on the screen. Okay, of course, Magnus got the most votes, and Gary Kasparov. But look at that fourth place. Lu Miaoyi, who is the Chinese women's champion, said it is her mother. Her mother is Zhu Wanwan, who was the 2003 Chinese women's champion. So I thought that's incredibly sweet. Her mother is her
amazing.
favorite player.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing.
Now, Archers, are you required by Latvian law to say Mikhail Tal?
Actually, for the longest time, Mike, I was a huge fan, especially during the childhood, of Garry Kasparov. But nowadays, especially in the late years, when I'm becoming older and older, yeah, I feel like I'm obliged to say it's Mikhail Tal, and actually, it's true, really. Yeah, so Mikhail Tal, the magician from Riga, my famous countryman. Yeah, I would probably choose him. But I'm going to ask you another question, Mike, and maybe also to the chat. Do you know the person who named Shahryar Mamedyarov as his favorite player? I think this question also has a pretty obvious answer.
I do, only because I've been to Azerbaijan and I know the language family that Azerbaijani is close to. So for all of our, is it called linguophiles? All of our polyglots that are in the chat, we'll make this the next trivia question. Whose favorite player is Mamedyarov? And again, if you're good at language, then you will get this answer right. By the way, the games are starting very soon. So chat, you've only got like 30 seconds to drop an answer in, because we're going to get to the chess like maybe right as soon as you start dropping names in chat.
Yeah, last chance.
We're waiting on
last chance.
You got a nice compliment in chat that you still look very young. So
Oh, me?
BJH13, I think I know who you are. Yeah, you did. Yeah, not
That
me.
was that
Nobody said that about
directed to
me.
me. Oh, ah, okay. Yeah,
Directed at
thank
you,
you.
yeah.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Okay, Shol Kagd, you got it right. Yej Erdemis, the language, Turkish language, is very close to Azerbaijani, and so I think they're able to communicate speaking their native tongue. And yeah, it kind of makes sense to pick Shak Mamadiarov. Okay, we are off and running. Our turns. Here we go. ChessKid Youth Championship 2025 underway.
All right, so we have one game starting. The other two are not yet. At least the moves are not arriving. We have the Birds of You Marco Materia playing against Paul. So what do we have here? It's some sort of not sure what that really is. Some Marozzi bind position. All the games are slowly starting, and the dono starts with b3, bishop b2, knight f3, clearly going for some offbeat continuations. But these b3 moves, Mike, lately are becoming quite trendy because the professional theory is moving to the point where it's tough really to get any opening advantage, especially in a blitz game. You want to play something simple. Now, which board would you like us to start with? Maybe we could start with our Domus game against Lou. What do you think?
Let's do that. And I became a B3 Cowboy at the 2023 World Championship. I had the honor of making the first move on behalf of Chessable, and the Chessable CEO made me play B3 for the honorary move, and the players got a laugh. But we're not laughing now because it is our number one player. Yej may be trying to hide his real prep for tomorrow's knockout, but I mean, it looks like a pretty decent position for White. The bishops are all aiming at the Black King. And is White going to play for E4 or C4, do you think, in this position?
I find it very interesting, Mike, that this position transposed to the Zuckertort system, right? He started to play b3, bishop b2, and then he very quickly positioned the other bishop on d3, put the pawn on d4. What we did not see very quickly, what was played on the board was this capture d takes on c5. And you're right, Mike, e4 is played. And I think it also makes sense because you can see both of White's bishop. They're staring at the direction of the Black King. And this is what I believe is the best way to play accelerated time control games, is that you try to have the so-called short-term simple initiative to go at the king, because when you have not so much time, you simply don't have the time to figure out all the details. Are your opponent's threats real or illusory? Even though, as we are seeing by the bar says, well, Black is actually even slightly better.
I have a question. E4 obviously was one of the choices, but would it have made sense for him to play Queen E2 first? And my reason is, if there's wholesale trades on E4, then he could take back with the queen, and then everything is aiming at the king side. I'm not saying Black would have done that, but would you have played E4 with Queen E2 first, or would you have played E4 right away like Yej did?
Yeah, it definitely made sense. And also, since this is a blitz game, there's also a fair chance that maybe Yesh simply mixed up something. I've been in this situation so many times. Sometimes the hand makes the move before the brain tells you what to do. And even though you think you're playing the correct moves, as soon as you play them, you're like, oh, wait, no, you're right. I should have played Queen E2 first, right? But okay, what's done is done. And after E4, as you can see, Lou is thinking about her choices, and maybe she recognizes e4 is not how you're supposed to play. But wait, Mike, this rook d8, I think here you basically have to play e5, because after e5, the pawn on e5 seriously hampers down Black's position, and then White is able to start some sort of a king set attack. Yeah, and there you go, e5's on the board.
Yeah, well said. I actually was wondering if Queen E2 was still possible, but anyway, we do have this on the board now. Probably better not capture the knight now. Looks like very bad things will happen to your position. So for the third time, I'm going to suggest Queen E2. I'm going to keep suggesting it until it's played.
Oh, Queen E2 here makes perfect sense. So Queen E2, Knight E2, Knight E2, A3. Okay, that's a very interesting move. I suppose Mikey wants to stop Knight B4 so that this bishop here stays on D3 alive. Now your Queen E2 absolutely is going to happen, and Engine marks this as a mistake. So here Domus has a fantastic position. Get rid of the Knight from E4, put the Rook on E1, play F4, F4, Rook F3, Rook H3, and have some fun at the king side.
I'd like to stay on this game. I think it's the most interesting game so far. There's still a lot of dynamism left in the position. I do want to make an announcement, though, that Zokid Suyarov has not shown up quite yet. So until he shows up, we're going to keep forfeiting his games. And we do hope that he shows up at least by the halfway mark. So just a quick little clarification there that We have 2 of the 3 games happening due to the one player not showing up just yet. So, but this is the most interesting game. I mean, one of those positions where a checkmate could happen. I'm wondering if a knight g5 sack is going to happen. Knight g5 was, by the way, playable in that position. I'm not saying it was a good move, but anyway, it's going to happen at some point, I hope.
Yeah, I think so. You're completely right. Also, knight h2, knight g4 is a very typical idea of the kings in an attack, and this is something I know quite a bit about. But the point is, if you play knight h2, you need to watch out for bishop d4, and maybe black can trade off some pieces. Also, d5, d4, open up the Latsko bishop on the long diagonal, makes perfect sense. So if I'm here playing with white, I'm thinking I want to bring the rook on a1 in the game, but opponent a3 is under attack. So perhaps I could play b4 first, protect the pawn, play rook e1, and then see what happens. But no, Yash plays queen g4. I'm not sure what's the idea. I suppose somehow pressure the pawn on g7, but the question is, what's he going to do next?
Yeah, I don't know. Black is being very coy by just not making any moves. Black has no pieces guarding the king, and yet somehow the king is surviving. What you said is very astute. I play the King's Indian
Woo!
attack sometimes versus the French, and oh, so knight g5 happened. And archers, why don't you show what happens when the knight is captured? It's a pretty simple line, but I think we'd love to see our first checkmate on the board if the
Yeah,
knight
so
gets
the
captured.
idea was queen h5. Yeah, queen h7, queen h8. That's why Lou retreats with a queen on e8, so the king can escape to e7 just in case. Now the knight maybe is under attack, and here I think Yesh is trying to figure out, is it under attack? And he says, no, it's not yet under attack. And here after bishop f8, I think he can even afford to play like rook e1, rook e3, rook g3. And this is exactly what's happening on the board, because this knight on g5, especially in the blitz game, is so scary to accept.
Yeah, exactly right. And it should be reminded everybody that Yej is a returning champion. He got 8 out of 10 in last year's under 16 round robin stage. He had no draws. He had 8 wins and 2 losses. So, and that was a year ago. I don't think he was 2,600 then. So this is a huge challenge, not only on the position, but just to play black against the #1 player in round 1 from that airport lounge. I don't see anybody in the lounge coming up to watch her, at least not close up. There's 2 people in the background there, but they're too far away for our fair play team to worry about. Okay, big advantage for white. Something's happening.
Yeah, there was a blunder exchange in the time scrambles. As you can see, both players are down to about 15 seconds, so black even has slightly less, so black blundered the pawn. And I think right now what Yash is going to try to do, he's going to... oh, actually he found knight x on e6 queen b4. As you can see, his tactical skills are very good in time scramble. I wanted to say he's going to simply transpose, try to convert the extra exchange, but no, it seems that Miaoyi's position is simply falling apart, and the elo favorite is going to take it down.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of just simplifying, but kids never follow my advice. Now the knight hangs and 2 rooks versus a bishop. It's time for her to go get a croissant. But the good news is, Lu Miaoyi, everything's going to get easier. Yeah, we actually had 2 results from the games that were being played. I'd like to report that international master Marco Metteria of France took down Yu Po of Malaysia. And Shreyas Royal was the beneficiary of the first round forfeit over our player who did not show up, Suyarov. So we'll hope that Suyarov jumps online and is not having internet problems or anything, but Shreyas able to sort of take it easy there in London in the first round. So yeah, 3 points from the first 3 games.
Yeah, I hope indeed that Zakir is going to show up. It's like maybe he's going to turn on the TV and Chess.com coverage is going on. He's like, hey, I'm supposed to play in the tournaments, right? So let's just jump in and join it. Stranger things have happened definitely in the past, so I hope he is going to make it. And maybe now we could also check the current standings after the round 1 and see who is in the lead.
And there we go. There you see it. Now, keep in mind, those are their FIDE Blitz ratings. Some of these younger players just don't play a lot of FIDE Blitz events, so you can add a couple hundred points to all of those ratings. But setting aside the ratings, we can see that Shreyas got the full point for, well, for showing up, right? Showing up is half the battle sometimes. Yej won that very complicated game. And then Marco ground down his opponent, Yu Po, Malaysia's #2 overall player. But it's a long way to go. Remember, the goal today is to finish in the top 2. There's a small advantage of finishing first over second, but essentially you're trying to advance to tomorrow's knockout. So finishing the top 2 is the goal. And just from prior experience, like we did the under 13 championship last month, I would say archers, 6.5 is the magic number. If you get to 6.5, your chances of advancing are very, very high. We are off and running in round 2. So let's see what we've got. We've got Yej playing some b3 stuff. Now a double fianchetto for Yej.
Yeah, and this now is going to transpose to some, again, kings in an attack, except here the knight goes to h3. I love this system, except I think I mostly have played it from the white's perspective with the knight on f3, as we can see from the bird's eye view. For some reason, Lou's game against Royale is not yet starting. I hope her connection from the lounge is all good. So we have only one game actually running at the time.
Well, we know which one to focus on then. But yeah, we do stagger the games a little bit sometimes, where it could just be that she's in line for a croissant. So, but we know that she's there. So I think that game will probably start very, very soon. I just got a message from former Chessable CEO Gert. He is the original B3 cowboy. Now he's tuning in because his favorite opening is now getting played twice by the #1 player. Now this almost looks like a London for black, where the bishop hides back there. Color is reversed, of course. I always find that bishop so annoying when it hides in the London on h2. Now it's on h7, of course. But what do we do about this bishop on h7?
I'm actually a bit surprised, Mike, that a couple of moves ago, Yagiz decided to take the pawn on d5, because typically the pawn structure of this position dictates that you want to play e5 and go for these kings in an attack. But again, chess is proving that it's becoming more and more concrete, and that's why even at this very young age, the players clearly know that you have to be able to mix all the ideas. Knight f1 seems to be a positional mistake, because this bishop b4 by Marco is a very powerful move, clearly disrupting white's coordination of the pieces, because if you move the rook, a3 is a problem. If you play c3, the bishop on b2 now is stuck, and also you need to watch out for the intermezzo move a3, and then white's position starts to really hurt.
Got it. So you can almost pre-move a3 according to Artur's analysis. No, you wouldn't actually do that in a 3+1 game, but yeah, very good instincts there. The bishop on b2 is not going to be able to stay on that really strong diagonal. So bishop b4 on one level looks like a harmless move, but Artur's has walked us through the variations and shown us why actually the black dark squared bishop might end up being better than the light dark squared bishop, which is kind of out of nowhere. So I wonder why Yagiz didn't go for the e5 kingside attack again. Maybe his nerves were shot after round one, but I doubt it, because he's, he's a young kid and they just don't think that way. Okay, so rook e2, we're expecting a3, but Marco's going to give it a second look just to make sure.
Yeah, I think a3 is to be expected. The need that this bishop has no good squares to go. Bishop d4, maybe you can do that, but you need to watch out for c5, d4. This bishop is getting harassed. If you play bishop c1, you have no attacking ideas. All right, so Domus decides to keep the bishop here, put it on d4, because even though black pushes a c5, Mike, the pawn on d5 now is becoming a bit vulnerable after some ideas like bishop g2. You can get to the pawn on d5, rook b1, and the bar is dropping like a stone in this position. Black's position is becoming better and better.
I wanted to throw out a line there. Instead of rook e8, I was wondering about this idea. d4, the bishop moves back, g5 to force the knight f4 away, and then to play knight d5. I mean, that point is passed, but I'm kind of wondering if that's what black could have gone for, a very concrete line.
Can I show it, or we are very quickly moving forward?
Yeah, please do. No, because there's so much time left in the game that I think we've got time to show this. So this is me having the luxury of just throwing moves at the screen.
Yeah, so this was the idea. The bishop on h3 would be trapped, so this was a missed opportunity by Marco, and instead this is what we have on the board. Bishop takes on c5, knight takes on e2, and it seems that Marco miscalculated some things, because yes, he simply grabbed the pawn, and now he's looking pretty great. I'm thinking already something like bishop d4, get rid of the invading bishop here in the consolidated position. It starts to look like Marco missed a golden opportunity a couple of moves ago.
Yeah, I agree. Once the black, well, actually, it was really, this game is all about white's dark squared bishop. And instead of it being buried, it's gotten free. It's destroyed the center. And this is the deal. When you've got hanging pawns, I realized by the textbook definition, the C and D pawns weren't actually hanging pawns because of the B pawn. But when you lose one, then the other one just gets so much weaker. So not only is it a pawn loss, but D5 is looking like he may not last till the end of this game.
Rook c8 here. Black tries to complicate matters. White finds this very nice move, 91, get rid of the bishop here. And I think it's safe to assume if the bishop is gone, then white is much, much better. So what you're supposed to do when you're in trouble, you try to complicate matters. Rook takes on b2. Mike, I think the idea is queen f6, hit the rook on b2, hit the pawn on f2, but Yagiz sees things very quickly. That's why h3 is a safe move to play, get rid of the knight, and then I suppose collect the pawn, and he does it.
I definitely think we should stay here. I do want to report that Miaoyi's game against Shreyas has begun. In fact, they're almost playing at a classical pace because there's a Maraxi by only about 10 moves played. But suffice to say, this is still the more interesting game. F4 looks like it's becoming a little bit more of a threat. Oh, but anyway, that gets handled by black. So let's stay here to see if Yej can go to 2-0. This is the battle of the two kids that won their first game.
And he's picking up the only moves, Mike, actually, this bishop c3, queen e3, and Marco is finding some good resources to play from the black's perspective. I wouldn't really say that things are so clear because you can see white is down to the 20 seconds. The king is weak. And one thing we know about the obstacle of bishops, if you open up the position and start a direct attack against your opponent's king, it feels like an extra piece. So this game is still for any player to grab.
That's right. I feel like with opposite colored bishops, a lot of times our audience focuses on the drawing potential in the end game, but I'd like them to focus more on what you just said, the winning potential in the middle game. If white attacks in the dark squares, it's like, as you said, having an extra piece, but only 14 seconds for Yej to convert this. You can see why he wanted the queens off the board. Now he wants the knight off the board to checkmate on g7. Is there any way to make that happen?
Well, yeah, actually, I'm surprised why he's not playing d4. The rook on b2 would be hanging here, but I think he was preoccupied with another idea to sacrifice the knight on e6. Wait, what just happened here? Rook b3, queen b3? Okay, that's a very difficult sequence. Wow.
Yeah, all kinds of kamikaze pieces or desperado pieces, and they worked out in black's favor. Now Yej is struggling. He's behind only with 5 seconds on the clock. He's actually got a massive pawn, so maybe he's actually doing okay, even though the rook got active.
There's so many things happening like within the time frame of 10 seconds. I really had a hard time to follow what was happening. Marco at some point was completely winning, and now it's Yej who is having a fantastic position. How many pawns? 3 pawns for the sacrificed exchange. These pawns are connected. Bring the king to the queen side, and I think the ELO favorite of the tournament, he's going to do it. Actually, he says, no, I want more. How about these king side pawns here in the dark squares? He's going to take them.
Really, that knight on d4 is the key piece. The knight being untouchable is what's keeping the entire queenside together. Now, finally, black works his way around to attack those queenside pawns, but will it be too late? It's actually getting more difficult for white, no matter what the eval bar says. But now there's multiple fronts being opened up by Yej. 3 seconds left, but how does he get his pawns? He could advance right now and make a fork on d6, but he pushes right away.
I think that was a blunder, Mike. He missed this intermezzo check, rook e2 check, and now the bar says it's just equal. The b pawn is going nowhere, and again, any player can win this. I think he slightly overdid it with his appetite.
I want to see a bishop and knight mate, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. With 3 seconds left, he's trying to work his way into the d pawn. Amazing stuff. We've got games side by side here.
Again, yeah, white is again playing for the win. He collected 2 pawns, h pawn and d pawn. Rook f4, now the h pawn is gone. I have a feeling, Mike, this is going to end with a draw, either with a heavy blunder. Yeah, but with those obstacle bishops, you never know, but at least it feels that if somebody's playing here for the win, it's still white, but maybe black has managed to find some sort of a fortress.
Yeah, over in the other game, Miaoyi is up a queen for a knight. Knights are very annoying, though, when you've got 5 seconds left to win the game. So Shreyas, well within his purview not to resign this. You never know if the white king will walk into a fork somehow. Even rook takes g2 is an idea. If the king takes back, there's a fork. But that would actually still win for white. But anyway, you can see why black is not resigning there. Over in the Yej game, it looks like a Troitsky position, like, white to play and win in 12 or something. I don't even know what's going on there.
There goes the d pawn. Now it's on d6. I mean, white is still trying to win this, and this knight is so tricky. Mike, I will pick a knight in time scramble anytime.
Yeah, Shreyas did make a fork with his pawn, not with his knight, and he's gone from totally lost to totally winning.
Oh my goodness. He just blundered the queen, did he?
Yeah, no expression from Miaoyi. She's the one trying to win block, perhaps, but wow, I can't even follow which game to look at here, so I'm glad we got the side-by-side here. All 4 players are super focused. In fact, Marco's leaning in so much, we're only getting the top of his head, but I can't even make a prediction.
Watch out, rook d7. Watch out, rook d7. Check, there's going to be a sneak attack by the bishop. Okay, now the d-pawn drops, and I think now it's black who is playing for the win. But knight f5 check. Is a big check coming?
Absolutely. Now, what's the theory on rook and bishop versus bishop and knight? I assume it's a draw, but too weird for me.
I think here black is trying to be ambitious because he can take on d6 at any moment when he wants, and it's just a basic fortress in the game of Yej against Marco. That's the game I'm following. I'm also seeing Liu's position against Royale is black is simply winning here. So big question is how the game against the tournament favorite is going to finish. Knight c4. Oh my goodness,
Oh,
bishop
hung the
d5,
knight.
he blundered the knight. Oh, wow. And that's
Wow,
it.
this would be an amazing comeback. He only suffered 2 losses last year, Yaj did, but he's in line for his first loss very early here. Oh, now the rook is trapped. It's Troitsky. It is Troitsky after bishop c5. It's some kind of weird draw where the rook is trapped forever.
I have never
I mean,
seen
not
something
even
like this, Mike. I
trapped.
mean, actually, how do you capitalize on the extra rook? You can't.
The rook has to guard b7, so he's actually letting the rook get out, but it can't move because it has to guard the final light square on
Oh my
b7.
goodness. Oh my goodness. That is pure cinema.
All right.
I mean,
Yej
that was a
throws his
totally
head back.
crazy moment.
Yej is like, how is that position legal? I mean, in some sense, he should be happy that down a rook, he's still got a draw. It's not the worst thing in the world, but when you're a 2600, you're probably expecting to convert the knight and 700 pawns position.
And by the way, Mike, this was a normal 140 move online blitz draw.
I didn't realize it was 140, but yeah, just your run of the mill. We're in for a long afternoon. Buckle up, kids type draw. Wow. And with the 2 games side by side there, could you imagine if we had a third game? We would have expended all of our commentator energy in round 2.
Right, yeah, this is crazy action. So we already have a tough time to choose, and the games do not disappoint. I mean, this game was quite something, and I felt that, okay, when Yej blundered the piece, that's it, he's gone. Like, okay, X rook, and he found this escape in the very end, some Troitsky draw. I don't know. It was really fun to follow, Mike.
Okay, it was fun. Shreyas does have a perfect 2 out of 2. Remember, one of those is a forfeit win. Everybody's going to get the benefit of a forfeit win if our player Suyarov does not show up. But anyway, off and running in round 3. Very little time for any players to catch their breath. There's the side-by-side. The buy looks like it's going to be Yej. It is his turn to play Suyarov. So now, Yej, by the way, probably needs that buy. It's a well-timed buy for him. And Archers, which game do you want to focus on first?
Yeah, maybe we could follow Royal Shreyas game against Yutian. I'm
Sounds good.
quite surprised by the trend. It seems that b3 is the popular choice by Erdomos. Also Marco now repeats it. Then they go to the Zuckertot system again. Is there something I don't know, Mike? Is there like a latest trend that Magnus plays something in the recent tournaments I'm not aware of? But again, we're seeing a lot of b3s in the Blitz tournament.
Yeah, I remember it being a little bit popular a couple of years ago, again, when I had to play it. I don't remember the hashtag B3 Cowboy still trending on Twitter, though. It might have to be resurfaced for this one. It was the thing where people that played it kind of put themselves in a fun group, we're the B3 Cowboys. But it could also just be that they're trying to hide their prep for classical and even for tomorrow's knockout. So I doubt that they were able to follow each other's games. I doubt Shreyas was watching Yej's games and saying, "Oh, he's playing b3. I'm going to do that." I think he was focused on. But remember,
I have to intervene.
Yeah.
I have to intervene, like, because I have definitely done this before. Even though this was a classical game, I was sitting on top board. Jon Ludwig Hammer was sitting on the third board. I looked at his opening. He played a system I had never played before. I'm thinking, I want to try this myself. And I did it. I did it because he played a couple of boards next to me. But I suppose you're right. In online blitz, they have no time really to check it.
Actually, I was just going to say, remember round 1, Shreyas had the buy, the forfeit. So maybe he was watching the other games. Now, Black has managed to play d4. The usual rule of thumb is when you can trade off that d pawn, then you're actually doing okay. But it was answered by this intermezzo b4, and now I don't know what's going on.
Wow, he just blundered. I mean, that was a blunder by so many terrible things, because if I'm going to go back a bit, this b4 was so terrible move. Queen e5 just hangs the piece on c3 because there's a checkmate threat on h2. But you could also just take on c3, take on b2, and the rook on a1 is under attack, and bishop takes on h2 is a big threat. So this move b4 is simply very difficult to describe. And again, that's online chess to you. It just happens.
Yeah. And remember, this is the ChessKid Youth Champion. In ChessKid land, where I make most of the content, I tell kids, don't answer an attack with an attack until you get your rating to 2,500. Now, Shreyas did get his rating to 2,500, but he still shouldn't answer an attack with an attack because you just end up compounding your problems in many lines. And unless you can trap that black queen, then White is down an army. And even if White does trap the queen, White's still losing probably.
He's down a rook and something, actually, rook and piece and something. So I think this is a game that Shreyas wants to simply forget. And yeah, he just resigns. Okay, I just want to get out of here. This was a terrible game. Let's not sit on it for too long. And I think we have to simply move on to another game. Let me
Yeah.
just find it.
Both players still doing well. Two out of three. So Yu Tianpo and Shreyas Royal on 2 out of 3. So our only remaining game here is the Frenchman versus the Chinese airport lounge player. I don't know what airport she's in, and I don't want you to go bother her. So I'm not going to announce it. Also because I don't know. But anyway,
So
let's get back
we
to the
do not
chess.
know. Yeah, we do not know. All
Somebody
right,
knows
so what
on
do
our
we have
team, but
here?
I'm not exactly sure.
Actually, this also was a b3 opening, except that white played first move knight f3, and after b5 played b3, so clearly there's something we are not aware of. Or maybe just b3 is a very popular choice by many speed players, especially Hikaru Nakamura used to play it a lot. I think he still plays it a lot, especially when playing online here. Long castle, this means white wants to have a big fighting position, hide the king to the safety. And materially wise, I think white is up something, like a pawn, right? If I calculated correctly.
It looks that way, yeah. And I'm going to send a note to my data analysis team for them to analyze the number of 1B3 games played today in our live server. I want to see if it spikes because of these players setting a trend. So we'll get back to you on that maybe tomorrow if I can get some data on that. But yeah, the Black King looks like he should have gotten himself to safety because even if the Queen's trade, any knight move wins the D pawn.
Oh,
Actually,
this
you got to
is
play that
nice,
knight move
nice.
to stop Bishop D3 check.
Yeah, the knight c4 was a really nice one. This entire sequence of, if I'm going to go back a bit, look at this entire sequence, bishop d4, queen b5, queen d7, and knight c4. I think Marco calculated this. This was not random. He would not play this randomly so that the knight on d2 is left under attack. With this knight c4, he won a second pawn, and now I think white is simply technically winning. The only problem, though, for white here is this pawn on h2. So I think what here he's going to do, he's going to simply sacrifice it for some activity, like bring the rook on d1, go for some checkmate. I think this game is going to be over very quickly.
Yeah, knight c4 was just better. My idea was knight f1 to stop the bishop e3 check, but the knight is clearly more active where he is right now. I was also wondering if there was some line where you play h4, allow en passant, but then double your rooks. This looks simpler, though. Just give the h-pawn normally, activate all your rooks, and is the Black King really going to survive this? No. It's a checkmate on the
No.
board. Lu Miaoyi still looking for her first point, but Marco goes to 2.5 out of 3 by memory. I think that means that he is tied for the lead because I think Yej probably has 2.5 out of 3. And there we see some other people in the airport lounge hanging out, waiting for their flight somewhere. So
If they're
Lu
playing other
Miaoyi
chess
takes it.
tournaments, we don't know really.
Yeah, they could be. Um, Well, it's time, I believe, for our first break. And there we see the players are probably needing it. 140 move games, airport lounges. So we're going to take a look at the current standings here before we move on to our break, because so many things have happened. So many things have happened that I'm not even going to, we'll get to the standings in a minute, but I'm actually flustered myself that I can't remember all of the results. I do want to announce that we've got a big event coming up that is way too fast for players of me and Archers' generation, although Archers, you're welcome to play. I want you to get hyped for the next event in the Chess.com Community Challenge. It's Hyper Bullet, just 30 seconds on your clock. That's all you get. Who will be crowned the game's fastest pawn slinger? Learn more and register for the Hyper Bullet Community Championship. That's going to be June 12th, 13th. Go to go.chess.com/hyper. I know sometimes in Europe, the supermarkets are called Eepers, okay? But anyway, we're going to call it Hyper. And go play in that. It is a community championship. It's open to everybody, and that's pretty cool. So we'll get the standings after the break. Archers, I know I need it. So let's take a few. When we come back, we will get going with round 4 of the 2025 ChessKid Youth Championship. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back very shortly.
Throughout the year, we have this ongoing collaboration with RLs. We host workshops, tournaments for the people who are experiencing homelessness. And to be honest, it's just amazing to see the joy and the confidence that chess brings to their life.
El ajedrez lo que tiene es una posibilidad de hacer conocimientos o de establecer relaciones intergeneracionales. Puedes jugar hombres, mujeres, niños, niñas, y entonces esto es muy interesante. Y también de alguna manera pues iguala a todo tipo de persona, ¿no? Dentro del programa ocupacional intentamos generar actividades que tengan relación con las competencias o con los gustos de las personas, aquellas actividades que de alguna manera les motiven, les sean significativas. Y hay muchas personas a las que les gusta el ajedrez.
Me relaja mucho, porque termino una partida y después una tranquilidad maravillosa. Me olvido de todo.
Hemos organizado unas partidas y han venido 3 personas a jugar partidas simultáneas que han atraído a mucha gente.
When we see a grandmaster with a first-time player, and when we see people who don't even play but are so interested by the game and, sharing and watching, that's the real magic of this initiative.
I have a rating of over 1,000. I think this event organized by Chess.com and the Grandmaster Maurice Ashley was just a great experience for me to come here. I got absolutely destroyed, but it was at least fun participating. And I just think it's a great opportunity to just unite with other people that can play chess, and I'm just happy to be here.
It was fantastic to be able to play out in open air in Barcelona. A lot of great players. I had some tough games. I was a little slow, but it's what it was. I didn't want to lose any games. I had some good positions, but they played me tough. So it was quite a bit of fun.
Las personas que viven en la calle y que están vulneradas son personas de ciudadanos de primera como todas las personas. Y entonces todas las actividades que puedan hacer visible esta igualdad, esta equiparación con el resto de ciudadanos es interesante.
It's amazing to be a part of a game like chess and then to see the magical power that it has, that it can transform lives. We see it happen all over the world, and to see it happening here in Barcelona, it's such a great cause with homeless people who may have life a little bit tough but get a chance to take a little bit of break and play some chess. I think it's a wonderful initiative that Chess.com has started.
It's not just chess. It's about community, it's about dignity, it's about joy in action. So yeah, chess is for everyone. When we say that, we really mean it.
Your brain is a supercomputer capable of millions and millions of complex calculations and decisions. But your brain needs exercise, practice to keep it sharp and incisive. Chess puzzles are a great way to work out your brain. Daily puzzle solving makes your mind fit, building pattern recognition, critical thinking, and memory. Doing puzzles every day makes your mind fit, helping you build creativity, problem solving, and memory skills. Puzzles on Chess.com feature hundreds of thousands of original, beautiful problems tailored to your level. Whether you've never played before or you're a veteran, whatever level you're at, Chess.com's coach will help explain both the puzzle and the solution so you learn as you go. Most importantly, Chess.com puzzles are fun. Find interesting, beautiful solutions while building streaks, leveling up, and competing with friends. Try puzzles today on Chess.com and give your brain the exercise it's craving.
Wear your love of chess on your sleeve with all new apparel and accessories from the Chess.com merch store. Maybe you simply want a clock that will never run out, or a mouse pad that will finally unlock your speed chess potential. Whether you play chess to get energized with your morning coffee, or play into the wee hours of the night and witness the occasional alien abduction, we've got something for every king, queen, and knight in shining armor. Even gift cards for your loved ones who've caught the chess bug. So check out the Chess.com shop for apparel, accessories, and more. Grab your favorites before they're gone.
Welcome back, everybody, to the 2020 ChessKid Youth Championship. I am Mike Klein. Some people know Master Mike in ChessKid land, and I'm here with Latvian Grandmaster Arturs Naiksons, who is helping me get through all of the analysis today, and we've needed it. We've had a 140-move game. We've had all kinds of topsy-turvy results, and we are moving on to round 4 here. Arturs, what has stood out to you so far in the opening rounds that has become a theme? Anything stand out?
Yeah, Mike, definitely that's the b3 move. I mean, these kids, they play at the b3 the very first move, or the second move is the b3 move. And also what stood out especially was this crazy endgame where Yagiz with the white color could not win with the next rook. And as we speak, by the way, the next round already has started. One of the players at the moment is missing, so we are not going to focus on that game. I still hope he's going to show up, and we have some spicy openings here again on the board.
Yeah, at first I thought we had a Latvian game, but I think it was a Schliemann, and I know
That's
the
what
Schliemann
I wanted to
is
say,
called...
yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I wanted to say.
I think the Schliemann...
I was like, oh, Latvian. No, it's not Latvian.
I know. Somebody's trying to get your attention over there. Now, the other name of the Schliemann, the Janowski? I forget what it's called.
Yanish. I think it's Yanish.
Okay.
Yeah, Yanis Schliemann. So this is also something I've been saying for years, is that the ideas of the Latvian gambit are not really bad, but I mean, pure Latvian gambit, unfortunately, is not really that great. I'm talking about the game of Yutian Po against Yežerdomos, where Black played very quickly this f5 for a blitz game. I think it works, but in a classic game, of course, the Turkish superstar would not probably play it.
All right. Yeah, definitely a rare bird at top level events.
All right, yeah, and the Royal is playing his game against Materia on the left side, and actually this position is asking for some sort of a sacrifice on e6. Can he do it? I don't really know, but since the players are playing it out so quickly, I assume this is still an opening theory. So, Mike, which game do you think is catching your eye the most, and which game would you like to follow?
I mean, if somebody's going to play the Schliemann and they want our attention and it's very close to the Latvian gambit, you put all that together. We've got to go to Yutian Po against Yagiz. I do want to point out that both of our early leaders are playing black this round. So Marco and Yagiz both have 2.5 out of 3. They're both playing black. But Yagiz has pushed his f-pawn and now played the move knight to a5. He wants to get rid of that light squared bishop, and we can see why. He wants to be able to get his king castled if he can.
Yeah, this is a fairly common idea, and this is also why here White played bishop d5, and he says, I mean, if you want to take on d5, probably, I'm not really sure, I think he wants to play e takes on d5 to open up the e file and get to the black king, and that's why here Black carefully plays d6 and says, your bishop is going nowhere because I can play at any given moment stuff like c6 and force you to go back, and actually c6 is played immediately, and which also brings the question, Mike, is the pawn on e4 under attack or not? Because if you take the pawn on e4, there's a second pawn on c3 hanging immediately.
Yeah, it's almost like a standard re-Lopez where, you know, like an open Rui, can you take the pawn on e4? Unlike the open Rui, there's already a black pawn on d6 guarding e5, which makes any sort of rook e1 idea not have quite as much teeth. Honestly, Arturs, I don't know much about the Schliemann or the Yanish, whatever you want to say, but it looks like Black has solved most of his problems out of the opening, and in fact, he did go pawn grabbing as we suspected.
Yeah, this queen e1, I slightly don't like it. I think the rook should have been standing on e1 here, hitting the knight. And here, Yagiz being ambitious, he plays bishop f5 instead of the, I thought, automatic retreat of the knight. And he is just going to keep the knight on e4. And it's surprisingly difficult to get rid of because I don't think that White can do something like g4. Knight h4 clearly is impossible because this square is protected. So how do you get rid of this? How do you get rid of this knight? And here, White plays knight e2 instead.
Yeah, just trading, but Black has no pawn issues at all. So even though it might be opposite colored bishops, as we said before, it would still be a middle game. Now, I'm a trader. I'm a guy who would trade in 2 seconds there and not worry about the fact there's opposite colored bishops. But after knight back, White tries to get some counterplay. While we've got a brief moment here, I do want to ask the chat, who do you think is going to advance here? Remember, you got to pick 2 players. So chat, let's hear from you. Now that you've seen 3 games by all the players, which 2 players do you think are the favorites to advance? I'll be looking at chat and trying to figure out what you guys say. Okay, Black grabs another pawn. Arturs, back to you. What do you see?
Wow, that is rather surprising move. I think here he wants to simplify his position because after f takes on g5, he wants to. I'm not sure. He's either take on f1, then take on b1, have a lot of pawns for the rook and two minor pieces. But I usually follow the rule is that if you're doing great, you do not complicate matters, and this feels a bit complicating to me because now white opens up the position c4. Now this bishop is joining the game. And if white puts the knight on e4, even plays c5, I would just say it's unclear, but clearly you can see the bar kindly disagrees with my assessment and says that Yagiz is doing fantastic.
It's funny you said this because I'm currently writing my Chessable course called What to Do When You're Losing, and it basically says ignore the eval bar. Any imbalance is a good imbalance. And remember, you were just down 2 pawns, but now you have an imbalance. So I don't even care if the eval bar says you should not have gone to this. White actually is giving black problems. There's a difference of material. Obviously, bishop and knight are different than a rook. So in my mind, practically speaking, this is much better for white than it was 5 moves ago.
Yeah, so it would seem, but then again, chess is a very concrete game, and a move ago here, white didn't have the move knight e4 because black was threatening rook f1. Now rook f1 is not available because the knight on g3 is protecting, so yeah, d takes on c5 makes sense. There's still no knight e4. Also, if white's going to do something slow, black might play h5, h4. Now the question is what happens after queen takes on e5. The answer is here, black is happy to liquidate the position. Now he has how many pawns is it actually? 4 pawns against 1 at a queen side. It seems the 2 minor pieces for the rook are great for white. The position is wide open, and in wide open positions, the rooks are reigning supreme.
Not to bring up bad memories, but the last time Yagiz had 4 against 1 on the queen side, you remember it, he wasn't able to win. Obviously, this is a much different position, but I just want to say he's had this material imbalance before, and then he had that really weird ending where he was down a rook and still drew, but it still left him disappointed. It looks like that knight's a goner.
Right. So, I mean, oh, wait, that was a blunder, right? Yeah, it seems that white just blundered something, the knight was gone. Yeah. So this game is officially over, but of course you never resign. Can we get the bird's eye view and see what is happening in the other game? I see the bar is okay. The game already is finished, so there's basically no need for this. For the bird's eye view, we could immediately jump into the next game. Well, Shreyas Royal just finished and lost against Marco Materia.
Yeah, Marco's extra knight proved useful, and 2 leaders just grow their lead. Marco and Yagiz, both playing black, both won 2.5 out of 3, both won. They both moved to 3 and 4. Let's take a look at the standings because it's starting to become a little bit worrisome for the 4 players that are trailing. Of course, we're still waiting for Siorov to show up, but Lu Miaoyi got her first point of the forfeit. Shreyas goes down, Yu Tianpo goes down, and one of them needs to get on a roll because you've got to finish in the top 2 to play more chess on Sunday. So not critical yet. We're only in round 4, but one of those 2 has to make a move. The England or our Malaysian friend.
Yeah, that's already quite a big of difference. Yeah, 1.5 points for Yu Tianpo and Shreyas Royal to catch up with the leaders. Here we see these are the pairings for the current round. Lu Miaoyi is playing Yu Tianpo. Yagiz Erdomos playing against Shreyas Royal, and Marco Materia, I think he's just getting the free point because his opponent, Yagiz Suyarov, it seems still hasn't showed up. I'm still hoping that he's going to do it at some point. We're going to get some exciting games, but most likely he is going to be missing. So the games are starting.
Guess
and again,
what?
B3.
B3 Cowboy. Yeah, this is going to be Yez's opening all day. I think once you repeat the same opening 2 or 3 times, you're basically announcing you're going to play it every time as white. That would be my guess. So we've got a B3 and then some sort of, I guess, ready or Catalan setup for Lu Miaoyi. She needs to get on a roll too. Her first win. She needs it bad in this game. So let's stick here. Actually, I was going to say, go ahead, Archers.
Yeah, this is a pretty old line. I mean, I think it goes back to the days of Viktor Korchnoi even further. I think this was one of the pet lines of Korchnoi. And if I'm talking about Korchnoi, I'm talking about like 60s, 70s, etc. And there used to be a spark of some modern trends in this line. Now, I recall there was a candidates game between Anish Giri against Jan Nepomniachtchi. I think Nepo was playing with white and Giri with black. So this is a pretty well-known theory. I'm a bit surprised that Louis is playing this very difficult line for a blitz game, but maybe she just knows this well, and some of the lines here are very exciting, but the engine typically says it's just equal, as usual.
Well, let's go there. If the players are going to play theory and they're going to honor Victor the Terrible, they're nicer people than Victor sometimes was. So, but you know what? Her generational knowledge goes back. Remember, her mom is a WGM and won the Chinese Women's Championship 22 years ago. So maybe we're relying on institutional knowledge of her mom, her favorite player. But anyway, we've got knights hanging all over the board. We've got weaknesses on d6. Nobody's king is ready to castle. We've got a lot going on for a theoretical line.
Yeah, I think this somehow fizzles out. Here, white plays, if I'm not terribly mistaken, queen b3, d5. There was a trade on c4, queen b5. This is pretty well documented stuff. I think nothing new is happening here. Now I'm trying to recall what happened this game, Nepo against Giri. I might be mixing up who was playing with the white color. If my memory is not terrible, then Nepo was playing from black, so that means Giri was playing with white. And this happened like 6, 7, maybe 8 years ago. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. So maybe there's some new trends here that I'm not aware of. And this is sometimes what happens, is that some forgotten opening theory lines, they get picked up because Stockfish comes up with some new ideas, and there you go. Everything old forgotten is the new one.
That's true. You're also just testing your opponent's ability to remember a line. You know, who knows if there's tricks and traps in here that you're testing your opponent on. The good news is, if you're wrong about any aspect of the Anish Giri game, he will tweet about it and remind us in the next 60 seconds if we're wrong in any aspect. So we can wait for that tweet. If Anish's Twitter account goes silent, we know we got the facts right.
Right, I think here black has to play d5, and then there's nothing better for white than to play bishop takes on c4. So I have a feeling that this game is heading to a draw. Maybe we can go to the bird's eye view very quickly and see what's happening in the other game between Yagiz and Shreyas. Maybe there's also some action brewing up. So here we go. What do we have there?
Yeah. Yagiz just moved his queen to d3 to get out of ST pin on the e file. He's kept his strong bishop on b2, and we have knight c4. We saw knight c4 in the previous round in a much different position with it's hanging, and of course the idea is that the pawn on d5 was pinned. The bishop runs away, and we actually have a tacit draw offer. If the knight on c goes back to e5, the bishop could go back to d6, but Shreyas knows he probably needs more than a draw to get back in this thing, so he plays a different move, knight e6.
Can we go to this game then? Because I have a feeling the other game is still theoretical, even though it seems that both of the players do not necessarily remember all the nuances. So that's what happens. You have this rook a5, exactly. This is what I remember. Now, knight e6, everything trades, and it's obstacle a bishop endgame with everything symmetrical. So I propose that we follow the game of Erdomus against Royal and see what happens here, because also for Royal, this is a very, very important game. Try to catch up with the leaders.
Yeah, I totally agree. And your knowledge of openings is impressive. I didn't realize that you knew it was going to be that much of a dead draw. But yeah, a lot more stuff remaining on the board. And Yagiz getting pieces closer to the black king. So is there going to be a sack on g6? Probably not too many pieces near the black king to defend. But it's an idea that you're going to keep in your back pocket.
Whoa, knight x on g6 and somehow... Wait, does it tactically fail somehow? There's all kinds of intermezzo moves. Knight g7, I was about to suggest this move. I mean, chess very often is all about the intermezzo moves. I mean, you include this move and suddenly everything changes. So I think what happened here a move ago, knight x on g6, he was hoping for some sort of a queen x on g6, rook x on e6 and attack, but this knight g7 intermezzo move changes everything, because now black's going to take on g6 and white loses a critical tempi.
We don't have to go back, but honestly, I thought you could have captured the knight first and just played knight g7 in response to queen check. But this seems to work too. If you've got two solutions, then one is all you need. And yeah, very suspicious, mostly because I suggested the move. That's what makes it the most suspicious. So Yagiz, I know you can't hear me, but you should stop channeling me. It's not in your best interest. But yeah, Shreyas needs us to get back in the game. Bishop g7 not liked because what? Some kind of mysterious...
Why? Actually, because you can't play queen f6. Queen f6 is bishop g5. You don't have a good square for the queen. This is actually very easy to miss on bishop g7. It's a very human move. Queen
Yeah.
c7, queen is... Oh, no, this king's exposed. King of 8 is knight g6, checkmate. So white already has a draw in the pocket. Now the question is Yash going to settle for a draw? Actually, he might. Or maybe he
13
feels he's
seconds, I
entitled
think.
for more.
Oh my goodness. Isn't it nice to be a 13-year-old kid? 13 seconds on your clock. You're leading the tournament. You're down a piece for 2 pawns. You and me would just take the draw and say, let's move on, keep our advantage in the tournament. But no, let's keep playing chess. Unbelievable.
Yeah, knight f7 was an amazing move. Now white wins a piece. Now the question is, how much material is it? It's 2 minor pieces for the rook, and white has a couple of pawns at the king side. So I think here Yash is pretty happy to trade the pieces. But this game is still not over, because I'm not so impressed by the bar, Mike. I mean, the bars keep shooting up in the sky and saying that white is completely winning. I would say that if those black pieces start to get active and get targets at the queen side, black could still somehow escape, even though now rook a6 was a very powerful idea. With the pawn on a7 gone, suddenly white has a very easy idea to push forward the a-pawn.
Yeah, the a-pawn is the big problem. I'm wondering here if you should play knight c7 when the rook takes, play bishop e5, and just try to keep the rook sort of cornered. Not a very normal idea, but white has so many pawns that black has to worry about, and black just can't get a passed pawn of his own, unfortunately. So,
I mean,
yeah,
this might gives me some vibes of Magnus against I forgot his name. Oh my goodness.
Arjun Aragaisi in the final round.
Arjun, of course. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Yeah, there were definitely some vibes where Magnus was charging forward with every single minor piece he had. He was down a queen, and yet somehow he managed to turn this around. But now it seems that, here Erdomos is going to win this after all. A6 sacrifice the rook just to bring the queen on the board. Rook takes on d3, GG.
Yeah, and the pawn even promotes with check, just to add insult to injury. Shreyas, a little smirk there. He knew that he missed his chance. Yej escapes again, 4.5 out of 5. He's on pace to actually break his score from last year. Last year he got 8 out of 10, and he's doing even better in the first half. This is the final game of their first go-round. Remember, it's a double round robin. This is the final game of the first orbit, so to speak, and we have, it looks like, a checkmate on board. Yu Tianpo, unlike Shreyas,
White just blundered everything in a couple of moves. There was like, it was a completely equal position, but she was down in the last seconds, and black was attacking, and she collapsed.
Yeah, and she smiles. She knows she's better than that. But anyway, she's getting a great chance to play against some of the world's best players, so we're happy to have her back. Actually, Lu Miaoyi played last year as well. Let's get back to this year's standings there. There we see Yej and Marco, they just keep winning. But Yu Tianpo also won. We said that him or Shreyas Royal needed to get on a winning streak to start challenging, and they do all play each other one more time. So Yu Tianpo doesn't exactly control his destiny because he can only play Marco once and Yej once, but he, if he wins all 5 games and you get to 8 points, of course you're advancing. So he kind of controls his own destiny, and I think Shreyas does too. I think 6.5 is the usual magic score, and Shreyas could still get to 7 if he wins all of his remaining games.
Yeah, but it's going to be really tough for him because now he's essentially 2.5 points behind the leaders, and here we see this is the pairings for the next round. Lu Miaoyi, she's facing Yej, one of the leaders of the tournament. Yu Tianpo is going to take on the other co-leader, Marco Materia, and Shreyas Royal is going to, I think he's just going to get a free point automatically because it seems that Zohid Suyarov is a no-show, so we still have 2 games. And is there going to be B3? Is there going to be B3 from Lu? No, out of 3. Still doesn't really exclude
but you can play it on move 2.
Exactly.
Oh, we have B6. Unbelievable. We have a B6 cowboy. Now, Yej is playing the opposite the way I play. I play G6 against everything. He plays B6 or B3 against everything. We'll see if it works out as black. And I should say, my usual prediction that 6.5 advances may not be accurate because Zohid Suyarov is officially not going to be able to play chess today, which means all of the scores are going to be inflated because there's 10 free points on the table. So it might be that you need 7 or 7.5 today because obviously, one player is getting 0, so it's going to be a little bit of a top-heavy score group. But Yej doing another double fianchetto. Archers, honestly, I'm going to leave it to you. You want the Caro-Kann on the left, or you want the double fianchetto on the right? Which is more interesting to you?
Personally, I'm kind of a big fan of the double fianchetto because that's essentially the difference. The players on the right, they're playing blitz openings. The players on the left, they're playing some very serious theory. That's what it looks like. So we could go with the double fianchetto, and I would like to go back to this moment very quickly. I know that this is a blitz game; they're playing it out very quickly, but there's a nuance. There's a nuance. You don't rush with this bishop g2 move, because if you suspect that your opponent is playing the double fianchetto, now I have caught a couple of times my opponents by changing the move order, start with knight c3, knight f6. Oh, I think it was. I thought I mixed up, because there's a moment when instead of bishop g7. Okay, it doesn't really matter. But the point is, black plays very quickly knight e4. You play d5 and me knight x on c3 with queen d4. It's probably going to take me, Mike, like 2 minutes to get to this position, so we're going to skip it. That was a failed explanation. But anyway, this is pretty popular stuff at the blitz level.
Interesting stuff. That reminds me of like a Roman Ginjihashvili DVD from the 90s or something. There was all those your early capture on c3 to double pawns and stuff. And yeah, I'm sure it's instructive, but we are back to this also quite weird live position where white has accepted a damaged pawn structure to get the bishop pair. But white is working on just getting rid of the double pawn by playing f5, maybe even as a pawn sack one day. And black is going for counterplay on the d pawn. Personally, I like white in these positions, but that's kind of a blanket statement, I realize. Bishops are just so powerful, especially in blitz games.
I mean, you have to play d5 here, because if white plays bishop takes on c6, queen takes on c6, then white is essentially begging for a draw. So now you play d5 and try to sacrifice the pawn on d5 for some sort of activity, like queen a4, knight x on d5, rook d1, rook c1. Pretend you have a compensation because of the bishop pair. Okay, maybe queen b3 also works, but essentially it doesn't really change the outcome, Mike. Black is simply having up an extra pawn.
Not only that, black's already got a minute and a half time advantage. We haven't talked about the clocks too much today, but this is one of the bigger time discrepancies that we have. That's going to be important as we progress later in the game. So Yej probably inclined to keep pieces on the board, keep things complicated, and press that clock advantage, which is now almost up to 2 minutes.
Yeah, f5 was I think that was a desperation move, because Lu was not happy how the game is proceeding. So a couple of moves ago, she just decided to play f5, ruin black's pawn structure. But, you know, I'm looking at this position, I'm seeing a pawn as a pawn, right? So I don't really see what is wrong with black's position. So here, Yash just needs to find a way to consolidate the position, to play maybe queen c6, queen b7, c5, potentially at some point trade off the pieces. This bishop on g7 is really powerful. So here we are already talking about the technical phase of the game. So the tournament leader has 2 extra pawns, plenty time on the clock, and I think he is definitely well on his pace to win the game. So maybe we can go now to the bird's eye view and check how the other pair is doing. Yutian Po is playing against Marco Materia, the other co-leader, and as you can see, the white player has an advantage, at least according to the bar.
Yeah, again, it's another one of those King's Indian attack versus the French type looking positions, even though I believe it was a Caro-Kann. So white is looking to break things open here. Very typical position. White's eventually going to lose on the queen side or the c file, although interestingly, it's not even that easy for black to break through. But white has this plan of playing perhaps pawn to g4 and breaking through in that manner. It's going to happen one day, because that's where the white pieces are aiming. Now might be the time to just play g4. Any thoughts on that move? Going to play a little more slowly.
Yeah, this is looking really fantastic. So let's just go, Mike, full screen on the game and follow this, because I'm pretty sure that Erdomos is going to win his game. And this is a dream position for any player from the white's perspective. And this is something we talked about at the very beginning of the broadcast. When you're playing a blitz game, you want to have a simple attacking position. And guess what? One of the best setups to get you these positions is the King's Indian attack. And this looks like a dream King's Indian attack position. The pawn on e5 restricts black's position. You play g4. You have 3 heavy pieces targeting the black king. You have the dark sweat bishop. And even though sometimes the bar says this is okay for black, I mean, you're just having all the fun here.
Yeah, really easy to play. In fact, I mean, it doesn't work, but even queen f6 check needs to be watched out for. Of course, knight f6 is just more simple. You don't need to stack the queen. But yeah, dream position. Also, dream position for the standings, because I'm not going to say Yej can't be caught, but clearly Yutian Po is better off trying to catch Marco. And this is his last head-to-head game with Marco. So huge implications for tomorrow's knockout, whether or not Yutian Po can convert this position, which we like better and the computer likes better. And Archers is pointing out there could be tricks on the G6 pawn coming up. So D4, trying to close down some lines.
Yeah, this is desperation.
Can I do
Yeah,
Matanovich? Because me and Grandmaster Malik Kashian always have to point out checkmates. Rook takes G6, idea Queen H6 check, and then mate on G8 would have been one idea for white there. Okay, it's a little bit past, and we're getting low on the clock. Archers, what do you see?
Yeah, so I think here Marco did the right thing because he sold the pawn D5, trying to simplify the position to get out of the direct attack. And if he gets the queens off the board, maybe in the endgame, in the time scramble, the pawn on H4, pawn on F6 becomes an easy target. So if I was Yupo, I would probably here try to keep going for the attack, but no, he trades the queens. I don't really like this, and I think this is also relief for black because now he plays E5, rook takes on F6. He's down a pawn, but the pawn on H4 is a weakness, and for black, this is a pretty easy position to play in the time scramble.
Yeah, and technically the conversion is really difficult with two rooks because the two rooks for black can team up, for example, on your H pawn or your F pawn. So the computer still likes white, of course, an extra pawn's an extra pawn, but considering what was going down against his own king, definitely much better for black than before. But only 6 seconds left. If you're white, just keep giving black problem after problem to solve. B6 is a weakness, F7 was a weakness. And here we go with the attempted conversion. King E3 would stop rook invasions. King E2, same thing.
Yeah, I think also white can at any given moment trade the rook. So black is supposed to activate the rook, activate the king, and never ever trade rooks. This should be somehow technically winning. Put the rook on D5, play C5, create the passed pawn. The pawn on H4, maybe you can just trade it at some point and play H5. So no need to rush. I think H5 here makes perfect sense here. But then again, it allows the black king to be sliding over to the queen side. The pawn on A5 is a target. Can you play rook B5 here? You have to calculate it. Yep, he can do it. He can do it.
Yeah. By the way, white did miss a chance to trade rooks on the E file earlier on, but this still wins and black accepts. But those pawns are really far spread out. And yeah, you can give the B pawn to win the A pawn if you need to. That's probably what white's going to end up doing. Give the front B pawn the A pawn.
Exactly.
Also, this is a funny
king
position.
B4.
You can stalemate the black king, force black to push one of his pawns, and then take and promote mate. Let's see if that technique is used, because it looks like it might be. Please don't resign, black. Let's make it an instructive moment. He resigned, of course.
He did, after all. Right. Yeah, well, let's maybe go to the bird's eye view while I try to find the other game. I'm slightly... it seems it's finished
I believe all games are done, and we're about to go to break. But before we do, you can see the players are getting up because they need another rest. There is our live standings. Yej Erdemis of Turkey, our defending champion, 6.5 out of 10, on pace to even break last year's record of 8 out of 10. That was a super important game, though, for second place because Yu Tianpo of Malaysia beating Marco Materia of France gets him within a half point. Don't forget, Marco still has to play Yej in one more game. That's good news for Yu Tianpo. Shreyas needs to get on a roll. So does Lu Miaoyi. And those are our standings going in to our second and final break of the day. Archers, when we come back, we're going to figure out which two of these players move on tomorrow's knockout stage. So I want you to not go anywhere, because when we come back, we're going to find out exactly who does that.
Students, did you know that you can get a discount on any Chess.com premium membership? If you're enrolled in a college, university, or high school in a participating country, you can get 50% off any yearly or monthly premium plan, diamond, platinum, or gold. That's unlimited game review, unlimited puzzles, unlimited bots, unlimited lessons, and no ads. All at 50% off. Go to chess.com/students and get your discount today.
I'm Gotham Chess, and I'm about to film the most extreme chess challenge I've ever done. I'm gonna be playing 4 games at the same time, and every kid is gonna be armed with a giant super soaker gun. Let's see if I can win all 4 games. Okay. Why did I sign up for this? This is like extreme sports. Oh my gosh, I can't even see. These two are like really brutal. I feel like I haven't even been attacked on that side. Why are you all defending your kings? Like, just let me win. Okay, all right, that's fair. I'm gonna be so excited when your water guns run out of water. I'm just gonna like... Oh yeah. How about you all do it at the same time for like 30 seconds straight? Hey. Just... Yay! I play this. It is mean, yes. How does she still have water? Oh my god. Checkmate. Good game. For some reason? Well, that means he probably enjoys chess, right? For some reason. No? That was so fast. I'm down to 2 boards. Ah! How do you still have so much water? Okay, no problem.
Before I move, my checkmate, I'm done.
Okay, yay. Ah, I had a feeling she was lying. That's checkmate. Good game. I can sacrifice my queen. I'm just saying, you're so mean. Ah! Good game. You lasted the longest. I'm trying to shake your hand. Woo! That was very fun. Thank you for volunteering. You know, actually, I feel like getting revenge.
We're about to find out, honey. We just got started, so I'll let you know.
Still an opportunity with a minute to play.
Join the community club on Chess.com and participate in amazing community events every week. On Mondays, challenge yourself with incredible openings in Opening Roulette. Don't miss on Title Tuesday every week right after Title Tuesday. On Wednesday, join Arena Kings and compete against a lineup of legendary creators. On Fridays, try the all-new Community Freestyle Fridays and throw opening theory out the window. And finally, round out the week by showing off your speed in the Community Bullet Brawl. Win prizes, battle legends, and challenge yourself. Play in the community tournaments every week on Chess.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to the 2025 ChessKid Youth Championship Under 16 division, where we basically find out who's going to be world champion in 2032. This is basically, we're all going to come back to this show. People are going to link back to this, and they're going to say, these guys knew. But who are these guys? I'm Funmaster Mike on ChessKid. We've also got Grandmaster Arturs Nikšans of Latvia, who's helping me through things. And we had a 2-person race, but it got really interesting after that critical round 6. Arturs, take us through the standings so far, please.
Yeah, as you can see, basically it's a show of two leaders, because up to the last round it was Yeger Domos and Marco Materik who were going almost with a perfect score, having played a draw between each other. But then in the last round something happened. Marco Materia lost a very important game, and Yagiz is catching up with the leaders. So maybe not everything is still set in stone. So even though Yej looks like he's clearly racing for one of the two qualification spots for tomorrow's final, the second place, Mike, is wide open, and everything could still happen. As you can see, these are the pairings for this round.
Exactly right. And we're going to have some inflated scores due to the fact that one of our players wasn't able to join us today. So you're going to need a really big score to advance. It doesn't matter that much if you get second place versus first. Just decides about who you play tomorrow's knockout first. But it has been a day that has been so full of action. I'm actually drinking from my 2024 Championship Cup just to get some energy for these final rounds. So I had to bring that one back from Paris. Hopefully some Magnus inspiration. We are off and running. Here we have the bird's eye of the two games that are in progress. One of our second place players gets the round off. So the Marco versus Yej game is the critical game. And probably we're going to look at that one just because it has the most implications for who plays tomorrow.
Yeah, and speaking about the other game, Shreyas Royal played a delayed b3. I think he did it on move number 3, but still it's a b3. You can't hide it from us. We saw it. You still play b3. And again, it's the Zuckertod system. Actually, I've been thinking about the Zuckertod system. It's not really so bad, especially in accelerated time control games. It just gives you these nice attacking ideas. But you're right. We're going to definitely focus on the battle between the leaders.
I'm checking with Michael Brancato, director of esports, and seeing if we put somehow in their contract they get a bonus for playing B3. I don't think that's in the contract for the players, but I am going to look at it. So let's zoom in on Marco versus Yej. If Marco were to somehow win, that would actually make it so that Yej, his qualification would still be pretty good, but not rock solid that we thought it would be. It'd be pretty amazing to start with 5.5 out of 6 or 6.5 out of 7, and then somehow not qualify. So,
right, and we also definitely know that Yitian, even though he doesn't play this round, he is really, really rooting for Yes this round, because he is hoping that he is going to take down his direct competitor for the second place. I think the first place more or less already set. And E5 is a mistake. It seems that White is trying to exploit the pin along the diagonal here. Is this miscalculation? I mean, I have a very big question here. What happens after knight takes on E5? Where's the big idea? Does he want to play F4? This has got to be wrong somehow.
Yeah, but how? Oh, this knight takes. Okay, I thought though Black was going to get like a whole collection of pawns for the piece. Is the antidote knight back trapping the bishop? I don't know what's going on. This is such a weird idea to take and go back.
Right. Yeah. Let's maybe go back to this. So E5. This was apparently not a great move. Knight takes on D4, F4. No, this is correct. All of this is correct, and even Knight C6 is also a correct move. So I think Engine was having a bit some fun here. Seems perfectly playable from the both sides perspective. Black is sacrificing an exchange for a pawn, but he has a pretty easy game. And look at this monstrous knight on d4. The white king is exposed, so this means I'm going to give the odds in Black's favor. So Black is simply looking better here.
You're giving the odds in Black's favor. I'm giving Yej bonus points for seeing more than Stockfish. So the world's youngest 2600 actually in Stockfish by playing the correct line. The eval bar had to catch up with Yej in that position, but pretty amazing. He saw the correct line for Black and he saw it so quickly. Just goes to show you again, chat, don't believe the eval because it's not always as fast as human brains are.
Yeah, eval bar. Yeah, I know the trend. Yeah. So knight c7, knight e5 is played. This knight is moving already for several times. I suppose you have to go knight e3. Otherwise, the pawn on b2 will be under attack. I'm not really sure what Yej is planning to do after this. I think something like knight e4 here makes perfect sense. I can think about knight f3. So Marco's position here is pretty dangerous because, again, this is a blitz game, and all it matters is who is the one having the initiative. And clearly, Black is having the initiative here.
Yes, these knights keep hopping around. I mean, probably archers, you were like me, and you took the day off yesterday to focus on the Norway finish. And even at the end, I went and I watched it this morning, and the knights were still dancing all over my head. I mean, I can't imagine how Arjun Aragaisi's head is, because it just felt like it was going to get mated on all lines. And this is not quite the same position, of course. I mean, Yej has a queen, first of all. Magnus didn't have a queen, but the knights are still swimming all over my head.
Right. So H5, yeah, this looks pretty similar. Also, we had another game earlier today where one of the players had a lot of knights bothering the white king. And I also wanted to point that there might be a shot knight x on d6 at the right moment. Knight x on d6 will leave the knight on d4 under attack, but white always need to watch out for this knight f3 check. So the knight on e4 shields the knight f3 fork. So this position is still very difficult for white to play. And again, I don't really buy that the bar says, oh, it's totally chill. You know, this is completely equal position and it's going to somehow end peacefully. I think that black is definitely enjoying the position here. Black is the one who has the easier game. And here, Marco is trying to somehow clarify the situation. Knight g5. Look at that.
Yeah, you mentioned moving that knight was super dangerous. I think it's going to go back to f3, though, if it gets targeted, like if bishop f6 happens or something. I was going to ask you about something different. Can white play the extravagant plan h3, g4, and then try to take on more? But it's so slow that I doubt white has time for all that.
Yeah, and indeed, here Marco plays something else, rook d1. I was actually thinking maybe he wants to play queen e4 to push away the queen to enable the move knight f3. But then again, if you play queen e4, there might be d5 e4. So do you want to do that? So rook d1 is just like a normal developing move, just in case not to blunder some fork ideas on c2 and says, hey, it's you who has to move now, and see what happens. And now the both players are officially below a 30-second mark.
And there's so many pawn moves to make. I guess the knight is going to go back to e4, but then might happen with bow. Can you really play the knight to h3? The knight will never move.
I don't like this move f6 because now the bishop on g7 is looking really silly. And there might be ideas like bishop takes on d4 and knight takes on d6 at the right moment. So queen a8 marks as a mistake. I don't think that white's going to find it here. F takes, not sure about that. This activates the black rook at f5 and opens up again the bishop on g7. Now again, it is Yej who is pushing here. e4, rook f5. Watch out for the fork.
Yeah, 10 seconds left for each player. They're on f1. You could even take on g5 and play knight f3, but he plays a different fork. And actually, this one just looks cleaner. No need to sack the exchange to win the exchange. Yej up in exchange. Both players with 8 seconds, though. How can black consolidate? White,
yeah, he needs to watch out for this knight.
Yeah, white wants to put the queen on the same diagonal as the black king. Oh, now the knight's lost.
That's a blunder. Yeah, he just blundered. Yeah, he blundered the knight, and now the tournament leader is going to win this, and he does win this. Another impressive victory by the tournament leader. And I believe we still have one more game to go, or everything is finished.
It looks like Lu Miaoyi won her first, we'll call it her first natural game. She had a couple of forfeit wins. So that really hurts Shreyas. But Yu Tianpo is a big fan of Yej right now. This is one of those weird cases where you're in third place, but you're actually for first place to do well because you're really only chasing that second place qualification spot. So by virtue of the fact that Yej beat Marco, Yej is almost a lock to play more chess tomorrow on Sunday. And Yu Tianpo got what he needed, which is a Marco Materia loss, but they have already played. So Marco, the good news for him is that number one, he still controls his own destiny. And number two, Yu Tianpo still has to play a game against Yej, against a 2600. So those are two things still very much in Marco's favor.
Yeah, and I think also Erdomos has officially secured his place in the final because he got a free point from Yagiz Yarov, who unfortunately did not show up today. And the next round already is starting, and we have some sort of a Caro position. The move order was a bit surprising. I'm talking about the game Yu Tianpo on the right, but also on the left we have another Caracan. I mean, Caracan is so popular nowadays.
Thanks a lot, Gotham Chess. We can. That was a big subject of his channel for many years, and probably you had something to do with that. You worked with Gotham for a little bit, so I'm going to blame you as well, Arturs.
I had nothing to do with the Caracan. I mean, Hero, they did it before me. Yeah, so the Caro is definitely super popular. Not only Levy plays it, but basically any top pro plays it. So it's quite surprising that it's becoming its reputation is that it is aggressive repertoire from the Black's perspective. And this is very often that club level players and Miaoyi, they're watching it, they're surprised how it's aggressive repertoire. I mean, Caro is a positional repertoire. No, actually, it's aggressive. At least professional treat it aggressive because you get non-symmetrical pawn structures. So there is no easy way for white to liquidate into something symmetrical.
You know, it's funny. I have exactly one private student who wanted to play the Caro, and against the advanced variation, he didn't like the bishop f5 lines. And I said, oh, you should just play c5 on move 3. And he's like, but I just played c6. And I'm like, just trust me. And he's like, I don't feel like it. And then I had him watch the Gotham videos, and he's like, oh, okay, well, if Gotham wants me to play c5. So he didn't, I'm his private teacher, and he only started playing it when he saw Gotham play it. But how is Shreyas playing it? That's the question right now on the chessboard.
Yeah, Shreyas doing fantastic. It seems that Tian just blundered after d takes on c4, this check on d2. That's why there's a rule you have to castle as quickly as possible. The king on e1 is stuck, and I think here this is pretty bad news for Tian and also great news for Marco, because I'm pretty sure like a couple of rounds until the end of the tournament, they are keeping tabs how the other guy is playing. Okay, maybe not during the online tournament and while they're playing, but I think that's the first thing you want to do when you're a competitive player. You're playing a tournament, you're racing with somebody else. After you play your game, you do want to check how your competition played, don't you? Right? You always check it. You always pray that something good happened.
Yeah, and in fact, I'm doing the checks right now. If for some reason, well, not for some reason, if Shreyas is able to convert this advantage and Yu Tianpo loses, I think that punches Yeg's ticket automatically. I don't think there's enough rounds left because Yeg would be up 2.5 points on Yu Tianpo with only 2 games remaining. So I know that Yeg is a not a foregone conclusion, but it will be mathematically clinched. If Marco is a big fan of our English Grandmaster Shreyas Pro.
So in the meantime, the action is still continuing. As you can see, Yu Tianpo here, he is down a pawn, but he has managed to build quite a nice pawn wall. E5, F4, G3, H4. I'm looking at this bishop on H6. I just do not see an easy way for it to join the game because if ideally somehow Black would have another double pawn on E6, this bishop simply could not possibly join the game. So even though Black has an extra pawn, he has a 2-pawn majority at the queen side. White, it seems, is basically playing like with an extra piece. So that's why here Shreyas wants to bring this bishop in the game ASAP. Like, I don't know, remove the king and play E6, bishop f8 to bring the bishop in the game. Otherwise, it's just not doing anything.
Yeah, I like your plan. And by the way, if you do execute the plan that you have with the arrows on the board, don't bring your king to f5 because you will self-mate your own king in that line. King f3, g4, you're going to mate yourself. So you probably have to play king back to f7, but it's a very long-winded plan. But I don't see what else you do.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So 94 looks reasonable. Yeah, engine. Oh, rook takes on e5. That's a major miss. Now that's a move White did not want to miss. Actually, look at this. Bishop on h6. I just said a couple of seconds ago, it's a useless piece. Shreyas says, with all the respect, I think it's a great piece because it just allowed me to grab the pawn on e5 for free because of the pin.
Yeah, it reminds me of when one of your pieces is pinned to your king, but the one thing a pinned piece pinned to your king does is it guards another piece from a king capture. I hope I'm not giving you too much word salad, but even pieces that we sometimes say colloquially are doing nothing, they have that one thing, and it just happened, as Arturs pointed out. So Black is back in the winning realm here, and the bishop can go back to g7 at his leisure and get back officially in the game.
But can we also go very quickly to the bird's eye view, because I see that Marco Maturi is in a big trouble against Miaoyi, so things might not be over here because the other tournament co-leader, if I may say so, fighting for his chances to qualify for the final. He is seemingly dead lost in his game against Lu.
Yeah, let's go there. And if that ends up happening, by the way, that keeps the door just very slightly open for Shreyas Royal to still be able to qualify as one of the top two. So we've switched over the players. We'll switch the cameras in a second. This is actually the Lu Miaoyi game against Marco Mazzaria. And that's it. The queen is invaded. The black king is not going to survive. And Lu Miaoyi wins her second game in a row.
Oh, wow.
But more importantly,
her
her ascent. Yeah, but I would say more importantly, Marco, I think, loses his second game in a row, if I'm not mistaken on that. And that means that back to this game, if Shreyas is able to win, it looks like either Marco or Yu Tianpo, they're going to have to back their way into qualification because neither one of them are winning games here. They're both just hoping to hold on.
Right, so maybe this is also a chance for Shreyas, always fought until the very end again. One place seems to be fairly certain. His name is Yagiz. He's been playing fantastic chess, has dropped so far only half a tournament, even though I think in one game at least he was in trouble, maybe even more, but still what matters is the final result. And here, Shreyas has to figure out how to capitalize on his great position. I think at some point these pawns, they simply have to roll forward, but watch out for the knight on f3. It's tricky.
Yeah, knights are always tricky. There is a blockade that's going to be set up on the light squares, but then you always have to focus on how do you guard your H pawn while keeping an eye on the B pawn. So the knight is just so poor trying to get from one side of the board to the other. I would say the only thought in White's mind is that if he can sack the knight for both B pawns, then the bishop is the wrong color. But even then, your white king is so far away. So we're really just grasping at straws here for how Yu Tianpo can somehow hold this position.
Yeah, but actually, this only proves that there's always a chance. Yeah, bishop c3, that seals the deal. That's it. The knight on b1 is stuck. There's no way for white to play this. The pawn on h5 is going to fall. So that's it, yeah. Royal is going to score a very, very important victory here. And we'll see what does it mean for us for the final two rounds, because there's still one spot to qualify for the final. It's not clear who it's going to be.
Yeah, let's go ahead and announce it because I believe even I could beat Magnus in this position. But Yej is officially qualified for Sunday. He has 7.5 out of 8. As you pointed out, he was only in trouble in one game, and he found a brilliant way to draw, even though he was down a rook. But now it's getting very interesting because Lu Miaoyi and Shreyas Royal have both entered the mathematical ability to finish in second place. They're both on 4 points. So if either of them wins their last two games, they could sneak in. I don't know if it's mathematically possible, but it kind of feels like it. But Marco and Yu Tianpo, neither of them are grasping second place with both hands here. They're both sort of backing their way in. I think both have lost a couple of games in a row here. So that's going to be really interesting. I think it technically is a 4-person race for that one final spot. But both Lu Miaoyi and Shreyas, they both need to go 2-0. It's just very simple.
I'm gonna have to correct you a bit on that, because it seems that in round 9, Marco would have to play against Zakhitsu Yarov. So he is gonna get a point. So if only somebody can overtake Marco for the race of the second place, it's Yu Tian. So that's it. So essentially, it's either Marco Matera or Yu Tian.
Okay, fair point. And actually, the score is a little bit interesting because we have already gone ahead and forfeited Zokid Suyarov, and the points have already been given. So, for example, Lu Miaoyi only has one game remaining, if I'm not mistaken. So this is not a very normal thing in the commentary world, but I trust your math on that, Arturs. And yeah, it's still going to be very exciting. So round 9 is coming up in the 2025 ChessKid Youth Championship. And I'm excited that I can't do the math on the fly. I'm excited.
Actually, speaking about it,
don't know.
Yeah, maybe my math is wrong because maybe this point already was included. Okay, I suppose we are going to say this is really, as you said, an unusual situation for us.
Yeah. I mean, it's not unusual for a player necessarily to not show up, but the points were given in advance, which is totally cool. I get it, but it's making us really use some extra brain power. Maybe I should use my thinking cap. I've been saving my thinking cap. Let's put on the thinking cap for round 9. Because I do better. I record most of my ChessKid videos with my hat on. I don't know why. You know what it is? Going back to my kid chess days, I used to play with a hat on. And so when it comes to critical chess, I literally think it's like a comfort blanket to put a hat back on. Okay, back to chess, Arturs. Round 9 coming up. Talk us through the openings here, please.
Yeah, thinking cat, I have to get one, really. I don't think I have it. I don't have such rituals. But speaking about the openings, what do we have here? Pretty important game for Royal. He is playing against tournament leader, and I think he desperately needs a win here. Try to have some chances. Again, maybe my math is wrong, but maybe he still has some theoretical chances. We're going to talk about a bit later. On the right side, Yutian is having a big fight against Miaoyi. And it seems some kind of a big theoretical debate in the Ra Lopez with knight x on e4. I suppose we can stay here for a moment and see how both games develop. But of course, I think I would like to follow the game of Royal a bit more and see how it goes, but we'll see.
Yeah, let's do it. I don't know if Shreyas still has a chance of qualifying, but assuming he does, then it kind of makes sense to stay here. It will surprise absolutely nobody that's been with us the last 2 hours to see Yegiz's bishop be on b7. He's been feeding his queen's bishop. I don't know if it's 9 rounds in a row, but it feels like it. Okay, b5, pretty normal, and these sort of like structures, trying to weaken the structure. Notice that white wanted to play b3, but couldn't because of the weakness of the long dark square diagonal. So white just gives the pawn. Interesting.
Yeah, I think this is something also I have played from the black's perspective. And also this is the second time, at least the second time when I've seen Nerdomos playing the double fianchetto setup. Queen c2 is one of the lines. I vaguely remember. Knight e5 is a tricky move because now after d6, you need to watch out also for some knight c6 stuff. But even though, of course, normally white wants to put the knight on c4, play bishop f4, and try to talk out black from playing d6. And here after knight e5, what was the move? You know, Mike, I don't remember. It could be also some knight a6, knight b4. Oh, knight x on d5.
Okay, just a simple sort of King's Indian defense idea, but now knight e7, winning the bishop and the rook. But Yej has sacrificed this rook before and come out clean on the other side. He's doing it again. Of course, the last time he did it, his queen was on a8, and there was all kinds of light attack. Yeah, could be.
I'm not entirely sure. I think I've seen something like this before, but again, it doesn't really matter. Yej has spent already quite a bit of time to get here. Bishop e3, d6 to protect the pawn on d5. Now white has to find a way to protect the pawn on b2. I suppose rook b1, b3, trade off the bishops. Watch out for the light score weaknesses surrounding the king. And again, I think for a blitz game, it's a bit easier maybe to play from the black's perspective because he's the one who controls the initiative here. Maybe somebody disagrees. Somebody's going to step in and say it's easier to play with an extra exchange.
There's a trap black needs to avoid if you want to show it. Rook takes b2 is probably wrong because after the trade of rooks, a move like queen b5 with 2 hanging pieces. So black needed to be careful about taking the b2 pawn a little bit too early. So if you're wondering at home, why did black not just take? He's got 2 attackers. That knight on c6 being loose plays a part in the problems of taking on b2 too quickly.
Bishop d4 looks reasonable. I think what black is trying to do, he wants to get the knight on d4, queen d5. Nice move. After bishop takes on e3, there's going to be intermezzo move, f takes on e3, the queen on f6 is under attack. And I think that black simply blundered this. I suppose you have to play rook c8 or rook b6 to keep the game alive. Otherwise, if the knight leaves, there might be bishop takes on d4, a massive problem. But what do you play? Do you play rook b8, rook c8, or rook b6? What do you do? And 30 seconds here for tournament leader.
Probably rook b6, because then if you move your knight one day, your rook provides extra support to d6. I mean, it's a small point, but you've got to pick one quickly. And honestly, when Shreyas was down a minute and a half, probably not the kind of position you want to burn a whole lot of time on. Just play one of the 2 moves.
But something else happened. He played knight b4 instead. He won the pawn on a2.
He did, yeah. And I got the players mixed up there about who was the one taking time on the move. Yej actually did have the luxury of taking his time, so apologies about that. But knight and pawn for the rook, but the pawns are not exactly working. It seems like white should be able to contain these 2 d pawns.
Queen f3 looks a very scary move. How do you stop knight e2 check? And it's played.
Yeah, rook e7 or rook e1. gives the king a little bit of extra space, at least visually. So
I don't know. This
where
is
do you
still a
put the
3-result
queen?
game. Queen c7, rook
Yeah,
b3. That's a blunder. Is there a mate? Where's the mate?
I don't see it. I guess you check on a8 and then check on e5, and the king can't hide in the long run, but hard to parse all that out. If you're white, go
Oh, but
for
this
it.
is
You're just checking.
yeah, but this is a very long sequence. I mean, queen d8, king g7, rook a8, knight e2, rook e2, rook b1 check. You cannot take it. I mean, I'm not even sure this is such a massive threat. And white missed it apparently. Queen e5, king h6. There was apparently an opportunity that white missed. I suppose we don't have time to go back to that. And now it's equal.
Yeah, probably not. Now, if you're white, do you just accept the bad pawns and trade queens and try to collect the D pawns? Still, the black pieces in the center of the board are quite creating fine. Do you think that white could just win those D pawns? It's not that easy to do so.
And there's a mistake. Wait, what? Rook a2? I'm pretty sure it's hanging there. No? Rook a2? Really? Did this happen?
Yeah, I think both players missed that it was hanging, but interestingly, D3 is still a winning move, although it's not a free rook.
Oh, wait, there's a mate. Okay, that was a bit weird. That was a bit weird finish. But we have still one more game.
Let's go ahead and switch over. I was going to say even Yej had a funny smile on his face. Wasn't expecting that ending. So Yej moves to 8.5. I think that does mean that Shreyas is not having any chance of advancing. But this is still really important. Marco is getting this round off, and I'm sure he's got his eyes on this game, and so do we. Can Yu Tianpo somehow win with the extra, not the extra pawn, with the non-side pawn here? But Lu Miaoyi's only got 5 seconds left with this side pawn.
Normally, she should never lose this. Her position is really great. She has also a pass pawn. She's about to collect one of the pawns for white to the king side. And I think here Apo is trying to stay in the game. F5, look at this very nice move. E takes, G takes, that threatens to play F5 to win the pawn here. F5 is a 93 fork. You cannot do that. How do you stop F5? You can't.
I don't know. That's what makes this move F5 by her genius.
This is impressive. So always going down.
All right. Well, what will this mean if Yu Tianpo cannot salvage it? Doesn't look likely, but he's still trying to get rid of all the pawns. If that happens, does he have any games left? Yes, he's got one game, but guess what? It's against Yej. Now, does Marco have any games left? Yes, Marco does play in the final Shreyas. Okay, so this is actually Lu Miaoyi final game.
And F pawn is unstoppable.
Yep.
Whoa, what's your king of 6, a fork? Not e4, you still need to be accurate.
This win? Wait.
I'm not so sure. Not e4?
Winning.
No, it's winning. Queen c4 check and take on the king.
Queen?
Oh, wait, it's just a check. Yeah, it's a win.
Oh, I'm glad she was fresh up. She reversed. She's excited still. And actually, she's going to finish with an even score. I think she won 3 games on the trot to finish her tournament with 5 out of 10. Congratulations to Lu Miaoyi. Great perseverance there. She can't qualify for tomorrow because I think she's simply out of games. But take a look at the standings here. Yej is in, and Shreyas and Lu Miaoyi are out. Yu Tianpo trails Marco by a half point and has to play Yej in the final round. And Yej is not just going to, roll over and let him have the point. Yej wants to get that 9.5 out of 10 monster score. Whereas Marco still has a lot to play for, of course. It looks like he will take on Shreyas. So Shreyas's advancement is over, but his game still matters a lot. That's the scene for the final round. Will it be Marco? Will it be Yu Tianpo? We don't know, but we're going to find out in only a couple of seconds because the players are still at the boards and ready to go for round 10.
In the meantime, dear viewers, you can write in the chat who do you think is going to make it. I mean, so far, Erdomos has been an unstoppable force in the tournament so far. I think he is clearly announcing him as a clear favorite also for the tomorrow's final. Post your thoughts. What do you think about it? Who's going to make it? And the games are starting. Here we go.
Definitely let us know. I know everybody picked Yagiz before today, but the big question, as Archer said, who is going to finish second and advance? And well, both games are important. So I don't know. I'm going to say we stay on bird's eye for just a minute before we decide. Whatever game we zoom in on, trust me, I will be keeping an eye on the other game, just to live announce what exactly is going on. So Marco is up a half point. Utiampo playing the 2600. So odds are in Marco's favor, but a lot to play for still.
Indeed. So what do we have here? G takes on f3 by the tournament leader. He's looking up for ways to spicy up things. I'm talking about the board to the right, even though, again, the bar disagrees kindly and says there's nothing to cheer about. The position remains level. Marco Meteri's position is on the left against Shreyas. It's some sort of, again, Marazzi-Ban position from the English opening. I think this is a position we already saw earlier today. I can't recall in which game bishop takes on d4 is played by white. I suppose we could go to this game. Knight d5 played by white.
Yep, sounds good. While we keep an eye on this game, I'll be taking a side eye at Yagiz versus Poe. But Archers is going to keep us on the action here. E4, I guess the idea is to play out and keep playing on the king side. But you can't play
E4 looked, anyway. It looked very logical. It looked very logical because you secure the knight on d5. You want to play like f4, so d takes on f takes makes sense for black. I'm not, again, entirely sure I would really pay so much attention on the bar. Again, the bar keeps dropping in black's favor, so black's position technically it seems to be getting better and better. White gets a lot of activity here. The knight on d5 is very strong, but now white faces a very big question. How do you save the knight? Because if you play e4, you give up the d4 square. If you take on e7, the strong knight is gone.
And while we're focusing on the chess, I doubt Marco has run through all the ramifications, but let me set the scene. If he wins, he's in. I just want to make that. If he draws and Poe wins, we're going to have a 2-game tiebreak to decide who advances tomorrow. If he loses and Poe draws, another 2-game tiebreak. Remember, he's up a half point. And if he were to lose and Poe wins, then that switches things, and Poe ends up qualifying for tomorrow. He could also qualify with a loss if Poe also loses. Remember, Poe is playing black against Yagiz.
Oh my goodness, there's so many scenarios.
Imagine qualifying for tomorrow with 5.5, much lower, and that's with 2 free points. That just goes to show you this event. Because it's almost like every tournament with 2 free wins and 2 free losses because you had to play Yagiz. It's not exactly the case. Remember, Yagiz did suffer 1 draw. Okay, anyway, that's the scene. Now we'll get back to the chess. I just wanted to run through all the scenarios for you.
Right, there's many scenarios, and I suppose we're going to get our answers pretty soon, like in the next 3 minutes or so. We're going to know who is the next qualifier. Queen h5, after a longer thought, Marco just played seemingly walking under a fork. Obviously, you cannot do that because it's going to be you call an ambulance, but not for me. There's a checkmate on h7. You cannot do that, but maybe black can improve on the idea. Bishop takes on e4, by the way, was a very sensible move I was about to suggest because there you go. Shreyas says, what about the fork right now? I just played g6. How do you stop me from winning the rook? But what if I play either queen g5 or maybe even queen h3? And I don't think you can take the rook at f5 because there's a mate on h7 hanging.
Yeah, even queen g4 was maybe legal. I didn't know where to put the queen. Even rook g5 was legal. Anyway, maybe not the best move. But yeah, it's funny how you have about 4 or 5 ways to get out of the fork. He chooses the move queen to g5. And now, even if you could take the rook, you might not want to. You might self-mate yourself. Anyway, obviously you can't take the rook. It's against the rules. But fascinating idea here. Just leaving the rook on f5. Little bit of shades of that Bobby Fischer game where he just played his rook to f6 to checkmate. But
h6 is a shocking move, actually. How do you play that? Because queen takes on h6, g takes on f5, queen g5 check, bishop takes on f5. It seems that it's almost like a mate, inevitable to me.
That's what I was talking about before. Even if you could take the rook, maybe you don't want to.
Right. And he can even force a draw if he wants to. I think, again, Shreyas here miscalculated something. So bishop takes on f5. Okay, maybe you can give a check. Queen d5. I can play e4, queen d6, queen h5, king g7, queen h7, king f6, queen h4. Maybe there's no mate. I don't know. Queen f6 check instead.
Now, setting aside the chess, he only has 15 seconds left. He would have liked to have looked at the other board because a draw, he can do no worse than a tie for second. If he knew that Yagiz was beating Po, he would just take the draw, but he has no time to look at that game. He only had 15 seconds.
It's a draw. It's a draw.
Okay,
He
so
did not find it. He did not find it.
So now we know he didn't. Might have been a practical choice, 15 seconds, but perhaps he didn't find it. If a win is there, he would have found it. Okay, so now he's up 1 point. Po perhaps does not know that. Probably Po went into the game knowing he tried to win, but now this scene is very simple. Po has to win to get into a two-person tiebreak. We're watching this game. Marco's watching this game. The entire country of France is watching this game. Yagiz only has 7 seconds to try to finish out this game, and he's worse.
And he is much worse. Queen e1 marks a double question mark. Black has all the fun. Queen c3, rook e5, keep the queens on the board. f4. Queen h5 check feels to be very tempting. This is going to be really tense, but Black has extra time, extra material. Bishop takes on d4. There's a pin. Queen h5 check. King e1. Should be winning somehow for Black, but exactly how do you win this? The White King is escaping to the safety. 2 seconds for White.
Wow, amazing stuff. He throws in b4 of all moves. He has to beat the unbeatable to have a chance at advancing, and he's on the verge of doing it. What clutch play here. Shades of Halliburton for the Indiana Pacers just coming through in the clutch, but he's not gotten there yet. The ball, couldn't remember if it was Tyrese or Tyrell. I think it's Tyrese. I'm not a big NBA fan. Let's go back to chess.
Tyrese, yeah.
Okay, the knight is gone. Okay.
Okay, watch out for queen b2, rook f6. Whoa, how it's a draw? E2 check. Is there some E2 check? Does it do anything? Queen. Whoa, queen G7. Did you say this move?
No, come on, that's not legal. Did he play queen G7 because it was winning or because it caused Yagiz to burn 1 second on his clock? Unbelievable.
He lost on time.
It looks like he has 1.2 seconds left. I don't know if he actually had time to resign. But anyway, he did resign. I'm hearing International Master Po, the #2 player from Malaysia. Your day is not done because we have a two-way tie for second place, which means let's go through the tiebreaker scenarios. We're already very well versed on it. They're going to play 2 games of 3+1, one for each color. The player that got a higher tiebreak score gets the luxury of choosing which color they in round 1, very minor thing. And if they're still tied, archers, at the end of the 2 3+1 games, they will play 1 Armageddon bidding game. And you know all about time bidding. Whoever bids the lower time gets black with that amount of time and draw odds. Pretty standard Armageddon stuff. But what unbelievable play from Po, beating the unbeatable player Yagiz right when he needed to.
Well, we talked about it pre-show, Mike. Like, what happens if there's this unlikely scenario if somebody shared the second and third place? So there's going to be potentially a tiebreaker. There's going to be 2 games, potentially Armageddon. There you go. There we are. We are right here. And Yutian did basically the impossible. He beat the tournament leader with a black color on demand. Very impressive stuff.
Absolutely. And right now, the players are probably being advised of the tiebreak procedures. We want to make sure that they are completely aware of what's ahead of them. I'm being told that International Master Po had the slightly better tiebreaks. The tiebreakers, just in case you're curious, are head-to-head and then Sonnenberg-Berger. And no, you can go look up Sonnenberg-Berger. It does have a Wikipedia page. I'm not going to explain it to you here. But Po gets to choose which color he wants in round 1. Again, a very minor thing because they each get the same number of chances at white, 1 turn each. And now if you got to pick your color in Armageddon, that would be a huge thing. We're not going to let players do that. So we're just, our game ops team, probably just checking with Po here, asking him, would he like white? Would he like black? Would he like curry laksa? As you know, Artur, the fastest way to double your Twitter account is to talk about the native country's food. And I love curry laksa. I had a lot of it when I was in Singapore at the World Championship. Yeah, well, you know, we haven't had too many meals together, but Singapore has every possible Asian food you could ever want. And that's what I was eating most of the time during the World Championship.
Never been to Singapore, so I wouldn't know.
Oh, it's a lovely place. And actually, while we're deciding about who gets white in game 1, I need to plug in my computer because my computer can't handle tie breaks.
Po has chosen black for game one. That's the news. So Marco is going to be playing with white. Po is playing with black. 2 games. Same time control.
Sounds good. And I don't even think we're going to go to break because we are going to get started with these games very, very soon. Okay.
You know, one thing I slightly regret, we don't really have a lot of time because, you know, these games, Mike, are rolling forward very quickly. Sometimes I want to slow down a bit and show you these amazing moments, what happened before, like also this last game of Yagiz against Yutian, the queen supposedly hanging. I think this was an amazing moment here. I think maybe I can show you while we're waiting for the game to start. Like, let me just go here, right here.
Yeah.
Right. I just want to exactly here. So apparently there was mutual mistakes in the time scramble. Again, it's very difficult to be accurate. I just love this move. Queen G7. You know, this is absolutely fascinating stuff because it hangs the queen, but it also closes the long diagonal for the queen. Because if you play rook takes on G7, there's rook takes on F1, king E2. You give a check, you collect the queen. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's interference tactics.
In the tournament.
And then there's weird interference tactics. Not only is this an interference tactic, you're actually seemingly allowing your opponent to play double checkmate, and you're giving your queen in the process. And Arturs, I think we just did our news writing team a favor because there is a 110% chance they feature that move in the post-broadcast news write-up. It is such a weird move to find. And to find that move and possibly that be the move that continues your ChessKid Youth Championship experience, that's pretty cool. That's Halliburton-esque.
Right. How many actually game winners has Halliburton scored in the playoffs? I stopped the count, really.
Somebody told me he's made at least one game tying or game winning shot in every series.
Every series. Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah. By the way, while we're talking NBA and waiting for this game to start, during our last looking at our broadcast, and we actually had a Charlotte Hornets chess highlight, which is the only Charlotte Hornets highlight you'll probably ever see this entire NBA season. We had a meme of the ball bouncing on the rim, but actually it was a queen. So shout out to my broadcast team for making me feel at home with the Charlotte Hornets highlight. That was our one of the season.
All right. As you can see, the players are getting ready. Super, super focused. First game, Mark Commentary is going to play with the white color. Yutianpo plays with black. He chose this. Actually, I'm not really sure if this is part of the strategy. Like, do you want to start with the black color? Because, like, if it's a 2-game match, you start with the black color, then you have a bit more information what to do. Or, like, if you're playing with white, you don't win this, and then you have to win on demand the next game with black. I think it's purely psychological. It's a bit easier to play with black. What do you think, Mike?
I've never been in this situation before, but I picked black in game one because I would want to know how all out to go as white. So maybe it's a small difference, but I would agree here. I would play black. All right, so these knight a5 lines, this is one of those things. Is the knight strong for pressuring c4, or is it taking a long vacation from reality and it will get stuck on a5? I never know in these positions whether or not the knight is good or bad out there on that square.
I suppose the real answer lies if white is able somehow to stop b5. And it seems that white slightly misplayed things because I think in this position, you're not supposed to have the pawn on e3, queen on e2. Now a4 just allows black to play knight b3, kill the bishop on c1. So the opening is a huge success for Po here. Now he plays e6, bishop g4. I'm not really sure I would have done that, but I was thinking open up the docks with bishop and have a great position. Yeah, and actually also the bar now says, why do you do that? So I'm going to roll back a bit here this moment. Here, instead of this bishop g4, I would have loved black to play like e6 or play some sort of a Benoni position where white enjoys the bishop pair, the strong bishop on g7, the strong bishop on c8, and b5 is happening. But okay, what's done is done. Players don't really have a lot of time to think about their choices.
And for those just joining us, this is the most important game of the morning, 2025 ChessKid Youth Championship. The winner of this 2-game tiebreak advances to tomorrow's knockout. We have 2 international masters, Marco Materia and Po from Malaysia. Whoever wins this 2-game tiebreak will advance to tomorrow's knockout. That's the scene. A little bit of money on the line too, of course. But white is going to be able to slowly advance this position, and black has no counterplay just yet. But with a move like rook e8, we know black is playing for e6 one day.
Yeah, e6 seems to be the idea. Maybe also e5, since white, I don't think, is going to take on e6 himself to give up the d5 square. And now black is in a long think. So does he play e6 or not? It seems that he has positioned every single piece for exactly that. And he does play e6, and the bar immediately says, no, not a great idea. Of course, white takes on e6, open up the d5 square for the knight, for the bishop, and I think now white should just try to find a way to increase the pressure at the d file, and this is exactly what Marco does.
Yeah, I'm starting to wonder when that rook on a3 is going to feel a little misplaced. That's like the one piece that's not exhibiting harmony, but maybe the rook comes over. Oh, there we go. Our answer was given as soon as I could get out of my mouth. Now all of the white pieces experience harmony, and they all make sense, all targeting d6 or are otherwise reasonably well placed. Even queen g4 is an idea.
Yeah, here black's position is looking really bad because not only white's going to win the extra pawn, also we have ideas like knight g5, bishop d5. The black king is exposed. That's a problem. So if this pawn maybe was on f7, things wouldn't be really so bad, but because of these weakened light squares, and there you go. Marco just played knight g5, keep all these tricks in the open, like also knight a6 fork. I think this game one is gonna end very quickly. I think here black already is trying to complicate stuff. He just gave up the exchange just to have something else than that.
Yeah, as we said a little bit earlier in the tournament, any imbalance is probably better than just, getting ground down, although this is a pretty big imbalance, just being down an exchange. Sometimes you can fight when you're down the exchange if there aren't a lot of open lines, but white is looking to open up both the C and the D and the E file. The minute the rooks open up, it's a problem. However, the d4 pawn is holding the rooks at bay from it.
Queen c2 was a very nice move. I think here what Marco wants to do, he doesn't want to play e4. He wants to take on d4. Okay, I stand corrected. He does play e4. This is something I wouldn't have done. I think I would have simply went for simplification, but Marco saw a different idea to exclude the bishop on g7 from the game. Very principled play.
Yeah, b4 was the idea. Right, I would have taken on d4 and taken on b7. b4 is a nice idea, but now the knight is playing some chess. The knight can hop into e3 whenever it wants to. Well, not right now, because the knight's definitely pinned, but this is a little bit annoying for white, actually. Yeah,
can you sack the queen?
Sack.
I think black... wait, you can just take with the rook. Okay. Yeah, knight e3 is rook e3, and you can't do that.
Yeah, we got a little queen sack happy in the in the round 10 game, but it was a nice idea. Okay, white does seem to be converting. Now that the d pawn is gone, the knight has no home on the e3 square, and things are looking pretty simple here for white.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a resignation about here. Bishop c4, rook d8, trade, everything. You already have huge material advantage. This game is over. Somehow, for Yutian, things took the wrong turn because after the opening, again, I'm going to go back very quickly. What happened after this move? Knight b3, knight c1, rook c1. He was doing fantastic. He was having a great position, but this bishop g4 move, give away the light square bishop and then trying to open up the position at the king side, it simply backfired and allowed white to take charge very quickly with this amazing knight e4, rook d3 lift.
Yeah, that's good analysis. I wasn't quite sure where it went wrong, but you're right. The minute the bishops traded, that was the difference. Not much reaction from either player. Poe grabbed a quick sip of water, and we can see Marco leaning in, as has been his custom the entire event. He's got a few trophies behind him, not as many as you, Arturs, but he's probably acquiring them faster than either of us. Okay, we are off and running. Here we go. Poe has to win as white to force Armageddon. That's the situation, and it's pretty simple. Win or go home for Poe of Malaysia.
Yeah, we have the Sicilian Tamanov on this trendy move Bishop F4, and we are seeing it more and more at the pro level games. This is the modern theory, so to speak. So it seems that both players know what they're doing. D5, knight e2. And I won't be surprised, Mike, if at some point, again, white's going to go for this easy build-up for a kingside attack. I'm talking about stuff like e5, knight f3, h4, h5, secure the queen side, and go harass the king. And g6, it seems it basically in white to do all of that. So I think here Yutian is checking, can he play e5? Can you do that? Because e5, black could play potentially knight h5, try to kill your bishop at e4, and potentially harass the pawn on e5.
Yeah, that's good analysis. And I would do whatever keeps the most dynamism in the position. And I always get mixed up. Is it dynamism or dynamicism? I know I'm the native English speaker. I'm supposed to know that. But, pawn trades tend to simplify, whereas your idea gives white this idea, this plan of just going after the king. You can go nuts, right? You need to win. Still, if you make your opponent play f6, now you're creating some dynamism in the position, which is exactly what you want. You don't want a lot of symmetry or a lot of pawns trading with lack of weaknesses. So I don't even care here if I'm white that I gave black the bishop here. I've created some weaknesses in the pawn structure. I could play f4, I could play c4. So if you in a must-win situation, this is not too bad for white.
I think it's pretty good for white because the black king is quite vulnerable. And again, very often this is what matters in a blitz game. Your king is weak. There's no easy way for you to secure it. And this is exactly what Yutian does. So he harasses the king. He's going to play some easy moves like b3, knight f3, knight e4, queen e2, queen h6. And that's the point. I mean, these pawns have moved forward. So the black king will never feel safe. So if I'm playing with white, I will definitely keep the queens on the board at all times, at all costs.
Yep, he probably gave a little bit of thought to bishop takes g6 there. It doesn't actually work, so he just plays queen f3. And he's going to slowly target the d pawn. I'm not sure how much he cares about his b pawn. In fact, he doesn't care at all because he just played rook to d1. Bishop takes b2 looks like the definition of a poisoned pawn. If you look up poisoned pawn in Wikipedia, that must be it, because there's too many problems in the black king's safety to go pawn grabbing, I think.
I love how you put it. Yeah, indeed, the pawn on b2 doesn't play any role in this game, but the piece activity does. Watch out for the bishop g4 idea. This is why Marco played rook b4. Now the question is where white is going to place his queen, because bishop g4 is not such an easy threat to parry. Bishop e4, can you do that? D takes on e4, rook d8 takes on e3. You have to calculate these lines very quickly. I don't think he can do that, and instead he plays queen e3.
Wow, puts his queen on the same line as the rook, and then insta queen b6. Black had realized right away that there was no great discovered attack, so just plays queen b6, trying to get the queens off the board. Queens off the board is not exactly for black, but it's like, it just makes black's life so much easier because black only needs a draw. Queen h6, okay, now I'm getting ideas where if you get your bishop anywhere on the a2, g8 diagonal, there's going to be some pretty checkmates that could be happening.
Watch out for the sacrifice on g6. Yeah, it already might be there. So bishop takes on g6, even though it probably was just giving a draw for white, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen again. Now here, Paul enables that 4 idea. The rook on e8 is pinned, and he's definitely thinking about the idea of bishop g6. Bishop a6, very nice move by Marco, simply eliminating bishop g6.
Yeah, that was a huge attacker that just got removed from white's force, because the knight on b3 is just a bystander right now. So that one little simplification, those are actually the kind of moves that generally win games, not flashy tactics or anything.
Now, this is true optimism, Mike. I mean, to this position to take the pawn on a2, that takes a lot of courage. I'm not really sure I would have done this because this enables white against some easy games. And what I slightly don't like about Marco's position is that his entire army is disconnected. The queen on a2, rook on b4, the bishop on e5, rook on e8, they're disconnected. They're not communicating together. And all it takes for white is just one move. I'm talking about stuff like knight e7, knight f6, ideas like rook e8. I'm talking about stuff like f4. I'm talking about knight e3, f4. So black needs to watch out so many things in a very little time frame. So I think this is a pretty dangerous game here by black.
Yeah, I agree. If black's queen could just pick herself up and be put on any defensive square like f7, then black has no concerns. But the queen can't get past her own pawn. Knight takes f6, as you mentioned, is the threat because the bishop is pinned. Basically, it's just a winning move. So queen guards f6. And now, does the knight have anywhere good to go? We get the exclam mark. Might have been the only defensive move. Ooh, queen takes rook, knight takes f6.
Look at that. Knight f6, bishop f6, rook e8, king f7, queen f8, mate on the board. You cannot take it. So Marco grabs another
It's
pawn.
a double exclam. Yep, first double exclam of the match. The rook has to retreat, but I love the idea. All right, how does
I
white
suppose very
improve?
fitting for the finale. Yeah, for the final game. Very, very fitting. Rook
Yeah, he
C1,
wants
the
to play
black
rook
king
takes
still in danger.
e5. Yeah,
Right.
I would say white can almost not afford to trade anything else. He needs all of his firepower to create problems for black.
Even though now the black
Look
king
at-
is feeling safe, yeah, why not queen g7, queen d6? Very, very optimistic play here by black, but again, chess is a very concrete game.
Poe with
And
20
white is down on
seconds trying to
time.
figure out how to create problems.
Can you take the pawn?
Well, queen d1 check is a fork, and then I think you just drop the rook with no counterplay.
Okay, 3, so
Just
he wants to
doubling
collect the pawn on a4. The black king is still weak. So technically, it still should be a bit easier to play with white, even though now white appears to be not in attacking mode. Watch out for e4, e3 ideas.
Yeah, white could even win the a pawn, but at the cost of trading some rooks, and that would actually make black still reasonably happy. Remember, a draw is a win for black according to the tournament situation. 8 seconds left for Poe to try to figure out how to create counterplay, and it's not coming. He's not finding a way. Those rooks are buried on
Black
the
is
a file.
Black is completely taking over the game. This rook b2, rook f8. So he says, if you're not going to attack, I'm going to do it. Rook takes an f2, great move. And I think with this move, basically, Marco secures his ticket in the finals because there's no way White's going to win this. I mean, now the bar says Black is completely winning, but the best White can do here is to give a perpetual check. And White needs to win this. He can't. He simply can't.
Yeah, you said it. Marco doesn't even need to analyze the perpetual because the perpetual is a win. So he's just allowing it to happen. And eventually he's going to hide his king on b1 or something and even go for the win. But this is one of those sneaky situations for Poe where it's like a draw is a loss, but you can't take the draw. So you're probably going to end up losing because you have to lose. You have to give yourself that 1% chance. So looking very good for the Frenchman. Marco, by the way, no stranger to our events. He has played in the ChessKid Youth Speed Chess Championship, this event's predecessor. He's almost self-mating, by the way, but he's not. But he's almost self-mating. Queen f1 was almost a mate.
And that's
Two
it.
queens.
That does it.
Yeah.
Wow, what a game! What a game! So Marco wins both games, but Yutiampo definitely gave him the run for his money because he was very, very close in the second game. He had a very nice attacking position, but Black calculated everything.
Yeah, you do what you have to do when you try to win the game. He gave himself a fighting chance, but congratulations to Poe. Remember, he beat Yagiz Erdemis, the unbeatable, as Black in the final round just to get into this tiebreak final. So he made it very exciting for us. But we will have the strongest junior player from Turkey, and I think the strongest junior player from France, now that we consider, Marc Andresi is now maybe not even a junior anymore. I'm not sure how old he is. But the point is, Yagiz and Marco both advanced to tomorrow's knockout, and I believe we're going to try to talk with Marco and hear about how he was able to advance in this tiebreak. My French is pretty terrible, despite being in French Polynesia for much of the last month. So we're going to try English, Archers.
Yeah, for me, basically, je ne comprends pas.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Well, when we come back from the break, we're going to hear from Marco. For those wondering why we're not talking to Yagiz, well, we might talk to him tomorrow. We'll see. So we're going to hear from Marco, who definitely needs a little bit of calming down time for his nerves. So don't go anywhere. And we will hear from our second place finisher and one of our players right after this break. Well, it's time. Fun Master Mike is here for the worldwide premiere of Sour Chess. And my opponent today is going to be Inya. Inya, how are you?
I'm good.
You ready to eat some sour stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you like sour stuff?
No, I don't.
When you capture a piece, you get to make your opponent eat something sour. We have a whole range, and we're going to get to that. All right, are you ready, Inya?
Yeah.
All right, well, good luck. All right, let's get some Sour Chess on. We're going to save the Japanese umabashi for the victor. Inya, where are we going first? Okay, we're gonna go for the toxic waste. All right, so toxic waste, Fun Master Mike is gonna dig in. It could be like a watermelon type color, let's see. Okay, I think you have to get past the first part. It's definitely getting worse. I think we're gonna continue the game Well, this is my mouth. It'll take a while. Okay, here we go. Guess what? What? You're not done yet, my little lady. This could be worse because, okay, that smell, if it's soft, I'm not sure if it's soft. But if it is, you can like bite like a half of it or a quarter of it. Is it soft? Okay, it is soft. Let's see how this goes. Okay, her lips are blue. And pickles aren't even blue. Yeah, okay, I don't know who your dentist is, but I think he's gonna stay in business after this. It'd be funny if I couldn't get the jar open, right? This looks terrible. Your favorite one. You do not have to eat the whole thing, but you have to take a bite that shows me that you've chewed some. Umabashi. I didn't know this word existed until we started planning this video.
This looks really bad.
Just pinch off. I have no idea what it looks like. It was a plum, okay? It looked like a real piece of fruit. Yeah, it's hard to show. We'll show the camera. It's gelatinous and it's probably terrible. All right, let's see what we got. This is the conclusion. Is it terrible?
It's terrible, yeah.
Is it worse than the pickle?
Yeah.
Really? I have to say, thank you, Inya. You're a good sport. You are part of history. This is the first ever game of Sour Chess.
So I'm going to explain the best opening for beginners. It is called the Scholar's Mate. So you start with this move. Advancing your pawn 2 squares, taking a little bit of control, preparing to develop your queen. What could be better? And your opponent will probably answer with the same move. And then, what is your strongest piece? It is the queen. So you bring out your queen, and you bring it out as far as you can, and you attack this pawn. If you get really lucky, your opponent might play this move, threatening your queen. What could be more natural? You want to expel the enemy. But then you can give a check, taking this pawn. And when your opponent blocks, you get a rook. The rook! And isn't that a fantastic start to the game? You're a rook and a pawn up. Even better. Let's say your opponent wants to play a bomb cloud, which is when you bring out the king early. Your opponent moves the king here. You got a checkmate in 3 moves. If you're not as lucky as that, let's say your opponent makes a sensible move, like developing the knight and defending this pawn. Then you can go for what we actually call the Scholar's Mate, bringing out the bishop. You might think that black would want to develop a knight, attack your queen. But there we go. That is a checkmate. The bishop defends the queen, and the king has nowhere to go. If your opponent is really, really smart, and is able to spot the threat, and doesn't move like this, then that's fine. You can move the queen back, and you're threatening checkmate again. Let's say your opponent defends the pawn with a knight. Then you can start developing your other pieces. Bring out the knight, bring out the pawn. Maybe this pawn to cover this square so a bishop doesn't land here attacking the queen. And you have a perfectly fine development for your pieces. So there you go, kids. The best opening for beginners. The Scholar's Mate. Go out and try it.
Welcome back, everybody, to the 2025 ChessKid Youth Championship. Our first round-robin pool is done, and we know who's advancing. Grandmaster Yagiz Erdemis of Turkey, and also International Master Marco Metteria from France. And we are joined here by the man of the hour. He won the tiebreak to be able to advance tomorrow. Marco, hello, how are you?
Hello, I am a little tired, but good.
Okay, yes. I was going to ask you in French, vous êtes fatigué, but you've already answered that. So we will now switch back to English for my benefit. That was a very exciting end of the day today. In round 10, you had a chance to play for the win, but you took a perpetual check. Can you explain why?
I thought if I took the draw, I would be second, but it was not the case. And if we don't count the tournament situation, I would have just taken in f5 with the bishop.
Yes, and you only had 15 seconds left when you had made that decision, so there was probably no time to go look at the other game anyway. That's just the nature of the competition. Pretty amazing stuff. Now, in the tiebreak, you had a couple of minutes before the tiebreak games began. Did you do any sort of preparation or look back at your other games with Poe before the tiebreak began?
Not at all. Yeah, I just waited the games. I didn't prepare.
Okay. Arturs, what would you like to ask Marco?
Yeah, Marco, I have a question. Maybe, obviously, you played many games today. If you would have to select, which was, in your opinion, the best game you played today that immediately sticks to your memory?
I would say the first one with Poe was really good with the e5 break, bishop g5, and bishop g5. I think it's my favorite game of today.
I also have a question. Did you prepare something for today specifically for this tournament? Some kind of opening, new ideas, or you just played your usual openings?
I just prepared a little. I saw the games of my opponents, and that I didn't prepare very sharp. I just to have a small idea of what they play.
I also assume
Now,
Mike is going to have a question for the prep for tomorrow.
Yeah, in fact, you have the luxury of just resting now if you want, or you can watch the other pool play later on today. So, do you think you will watch the other 6 players play, or do you think you will rest later this afternoon?
I think I will not. I will not watch in live the games. I will just look after they finished what they played.
Do you have any predictions for who you think will advance out of those 6 players? Fausti or Alice or Connie?
Probably Abhimanyu and Faustino will continue. They are the favorite, and they are. I think it's really difficult to. It's nearly sure it will happen like this. I think. I don't think.
It will be exciting to see. And actually, Marco, you have helped tease us about some of the great players that are playing this afternoon. We do have Abhimanyu Mishra, the world's youngest grandmaster. We've got Alice Lee, Fausti Oro, the world's youngest international master until last month. So we've got a lot of players that are setting records. So I want to wish you well tomorrow. Bonne chance à demain. And we're looking forward to seeing you play more great chess tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, merci beaucoup.
Thank you for the interview. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. And yeah, thank you for learning English, making it a lot better. I can only say a couple of choppy phrases. So he picks Abhimanyu and Fausti. Those are pretty good picks. But don't sleep on Tani or Alice. I mean, remember, Alice has actually been able to beat a couple of strong grandmasters, Arturs, that we've had play in our Kids versus Stars challenge. She beat both Danya Naroditsky and she beat Anish Giri. So she can beat those players. And of course, she's got good chances. But look at our other players there. We've got the Chess.com puzzle champion, Andy Woodward, who took down Ray Robson somehow. Tani, who is very famous on the ChessKid airwaves and just became an IM recently. And Ryo Chen, who, by the way, won the ChessKid Youth Speed Chess Championship several times back when we had this event under a previous name. So everybody has some sort of argument for why they might do well in this afternoon's competition.
Yeah, speaking about the players and GMs that Alice League has beaten, I think I can include another name to the list. That's me, because I'm pretty sure I lost to Alice 2 years ago when playing in Canadian Transnational Championship. That was 2 years ago. So she played a very, very impressive game with a white color. So indeed, that's going to be a very, very exciting lineup. Lots of promising young kids. So I can't wait.
Sounds good. And remember, whoever gets first place this afternoon will play against Marco because Marco finished second. Whoever gets second place this afternoon will play against Yej because Yej got first. That's the way it goes. And speaking of this afternoon, let's take a look at when you're going to see us again. We get a short lunch break, so do you, and at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 2.5 hours from now. So whatever time it is where you are, in 2.5 hours, Arturs and I will be back to announce the second pool play. We've got those 5 Americans and 1 Argentinian. The top 2 will join Yez and Marco. Pretty exciting day today. I don't know how many 1B3s we're going to see, but no matter what the openings are, I am really looking forward to the action. Arturs, do you have any final thoughts before we call it a day? Or call it a morning, I should say.
I think we're definitely going to see a lot of spectacular games. I'm not really sure if it's going to be B3, but definitely there will be more trends because these kids, they do follow each other. They know some of the top-notch best opening ideas. So maybe it's going to be B3, not G3. We'll see, right? So a lot of stuff ahead.
We'll see. 2.5 hours from now, we'll be back. I've saved my one baseball metaphor for the very end. Don't hate me to your non-Americans. It is a doubleheader today, 2 p.m. Eastern. Come back and see the rest of the ChessKid Youth Championship field. I will see you then. Thank you, Arturs. And 2.5 hours. We'll see you again.